So I'd like to call this meeting to order with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call vote. Harold Lemos.
Here.
Lee Sharps.
Here.
Casey Barney.
Here.
Tasia Shivalingam.
Present.
Fran Newton, all are here. We'll start with any public comment on the agenda.
No one signed up.
No one signed up. Okay, seeing none. Before we get into the approval of the minutes, Donna, are you ready to go now? Or you
We're
wanna?
ready.
You're ready. Okay, we have some guests here, and I'm going to let them go first. You're welcome to stay for the entire meeting, but it is not necessary. So, please, this is Donna Lane from the Community Development Block Grant, a consultant.
I am a CDBG consultant.
Okay.
So I'm here to talk to you about CDBG because it's been a little while, and folks from the Laconia Area Community Land Trust, Kara and Carmen, are here to talk about a project in specific, about an application. But
Okay.
I'm here to talk to you guys about Community Development Block Grant.
Okay.
Because I don't know when you guys have gotten one. Does anyone remember?
I don't recall we ever did we, Lee?
Yes.
We applied for one.
We were
think
talking
we
about
did it,
Soldier
didn't
On.
We
applying for
were, but
Soldier
that
On.
project
didn't go.
never happened.
Yep.
And I know
think-
we applied for one for Town Hall,
Yeah.
but we weren't eligible because we weren't compliant with ADA. So whether or not there's anything else, I'm not aware, but I could be wrong.
So, you probably, most of you aren't aware of CDBG because it's been a while since
Yeah.
that ever came up. But community development, so I'm just gonna kind of give you an overview and then you're gonna ask me questions and we're gonna talk about CDBG and then we'll
Lovely.
talk to them about what they propose. How's
Okay,
that? Does that
wonderful,
work
thank
for
you. Mhm.
So community development block grant funds are funds that are HUD monies that come to different states, and ours it goes to the Community Development Finance Authority, and they distribute it throughout the state. We get like $8 million, half of it goes to economic development, and the other half is mostly set aside for housing and public facilities. And so any municipality can apply, only municipality, it has to be the county, the town, the city,
Okay.
can apply for CDBG. So if a project wants to be done by a subrecipient, like these guys, they have to go to the municipality.
Okay.
And the municipality is the one that has to do the applying. And then when a grant, if you get a successful grant, then it gets sub-granted to that subrecipient.
Okay.
So the funds are for different things. Every project that CDBG finance that they give you funds for has to primarily benefit low and moderate income folks. And in the case of economic development, like if you had a business in town that wanted to expand and they could get a loan to expand, they would have to get, for the new jobs they create, have to be available to 60% low and moderate income people. So that's a little bit higher than primarily, which is 51%. But for housing and public facilities like a daycare, water lines that are going through a neighborhood that's primarily low and moderate income. If the town's primarily low and moderate income, you are not. There's only a few towns in the state that are primarily low and moderate income, and most of them are
Okay.
north. They can get help with their water and sewer lines, but if you're in a neighborhood that is primarily low and moderate and you have to, change out water or sewer lines, you could possibly get a grant for that. And then housing rehab, oftentimes you'll go in and fix up or even take an old building that's perhaps vacant, like an old school that's empty, and we'll put affordable housing in it
Yeah.
using a subrecipient, and they get what the CDBG is basically a grant for that work. And then they have to promise that they are going to serve primarily, they're going to charge affordable rents and to low and moderate income folks for a minimum of 20 years. So that's their promise for getting the grant.
Okay.
Most often when we do a project like housing, it's a conjunction of different funders. New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority is usually the primary lender, they're the bigger bucks. Because CDBG, you can get up to $500,000 a year in a couple different categories. And the first category is housing and public facility, that's one category. So you could apply for up to $500,000 in that category. So housing or water lines or daycare or something like that. You could get up to $500,000 in economic development. You get up to $350,000 in emergency funds. And you can get up to $12,000 per planning study. So you get a few of those if you wanted.
Okay.
So what's the obligation of the town is usually the question I get.
Yeah.
It is, well, what happens when we do a project with CDBG, because it has to go through the town can't say, not my problem, I'm not doing anything, I'm just a pass-through. There'll be a contract with CDFA, the one who distributes the money, and the town, and it says that the town has to abide by the federal regulations that go with these funds.
Yep.
And so then the town would have an agreement with the subrecipient that said they are required to abide by all the federal regulations.
Okay.
And then if you do get one, there's money built in, so you can hire somebody, a CDBG consultant. There's a few of them in the state who will make sure that everything's done the way it's supposed to. So nobody expects you all to go learn something for a quick project. 'Cause
Yeah.
they're 18 months or less, these
Okay.
projects, once they get a contract. It's competitive, so the economic development's a little bit easier if you can get a business to qualify. They take those applications all year until they run out of money, and they haven't run out of money the past few years. So that's kind of nice, but there's a lot of threshold you have to meet to score high enough to get funded for that. But for the housing and public facility, they take applications, well, right now, twice a year. I've been doing this 35 years, they've taken applications twice a year, and this is the first year, things are a little different. It's always been at the end of July, but because our funding was kind of iffy for a while there, it got moved to August this
Okay.
year. So they're gonna have a round at the end of August, and there's not gonna be a January round, which 35 years, that's never happened.
Okay.
Doesn't sound nice. And they hope to get back onto the twice-a-year cycle in 2020.
Okay.
Oh my God, that sounds so Jetson, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So the obligation of the town, so when the town signs up, there is a clause in your contract that says, you know, you're pretty much doing a good job of making sure this is working right, and as long as you do a good job of making sure everything's in place, there's a security on the property, which is our requirement. They wouldn't give you the money without it. As long as you're doing all that, which you have to do to get the money, that they will never come out after tax dollars. Okay? So if worst case scenario, because we always have to talk about worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, these folks are talking about rehabbing an existing housing building. If they, you know, get the money, we put a lien on the property. And if they decide they're going high rise, high price, top end, they're just gonna sell out, and that's what they're gonna be using their apartments, condos or something.
Yeah.
We have a lien on the property, and we, you know, get the money out of it from that.
Right.
And whatever we get, even if it's not the full amount, whatever we are able to recoup goes back, and that satisfies it.
Okay.
So if they got 475,000 and then they did, you know, serve low mod folks after 5 years, it goes down like 5% a year.
Okay.
And we don't get 475 back when we try to sell it and stuff, and we only get 300,000. These numbers mean nothing.
Yeah, I know, I
Right.
understand
We
that.
don't get the full amount, that's all that would have to go back.
Okay.
Because nobody would do, no municipality would do CDBG if they were putting their neck too far out there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which would make sense, you know,
Absolutely.
because obviously if it was like the water line, well, that's something that's really benefiting the town tax dollars directly. But another project like theirs isn't directly benefiting the town, so the towns are protected so that they would do this stuff.
Are there matching funds required, or is this strictly grant, straight grant?
This is, well, you get points for matching funds, but you
Oh.
don't have to have matching
Okay,
funds.
okay.
For ED you do, for economic
Okay.
development you
Yep.
do, so there's a little
Okay.
bit of different rules. But the housing, CDBG, and the public facility, which is what we're gonna talk about,
Okay.
does not require matching funds, but we get points for matching funds. We get points for serving more low and moderate income people than just the 51%. There's different point structures for how many folks you're serving,
Okay.
so
Okay.
it's not required.
All right. Any questions for Donna before we move on with the discussion of the project? Okay. Yeah.
I have one.
Okay.
Now, when you say security force, do you mean like instilling a contract from Northeast Security or like police force presence? When you said supply
I
security.
mean, a security on the building, like a mortgage.
Financial
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
thought you meant during the construction
Yeah,
because
yeah.
of turning.
No.
No.
No, okay.
I mean,
Thank you.
we're careful.
Okay.
We do
Okay.
what we have to do to make sure nobody gets hurt. But
Right.
for security, a security on the building, so if they change their mind and do something
Oh, yeah.
else, we have, you know, we have a recourse. to
You've secured your
recoup
asset,
money.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Harold.
So if they're gonna tell you about what they're talking about doing, asking you about, and if you decide to go ahead, we have to have a public hearing.
Yes.
So let me just babble one more moment.
Okay. No.
So it's really 3 public hearings, 3 consecutive public hearings. They go right after each other pretty fast. So the first one, we would talk, and of course, this would have to be posted in plenty of time. So
Yep.
if we were to do this, this would be August.
Mhm.
And the first one, we talk about the project. This is what we're proposing to do. This is the application we're proposing. And then we take public comment. The second one is on a housing and community development plan.
Mhm.
So you had a housing and community development plan because you asked for money before.
Mhm.
You didn't get anywhere with
Right.
it, but you did ask.
Right.
So you have a housing and community development plan. I sent it back. So you guys have it. I don't know if you've seen it lately.
I haven't, it's been a while.
So I sent it back
I-
so you could look through it. I
Okay.
think 13.
Yeah, that
I
sounds
think
about right.
13 was the soldier one.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And I don't know why it didn't move forward, but it just didn't.
Public hearing.
Probably here.
Was
Did
it the
we?
public? I remember going to the public hearing. I
It
don't
was a
remember.
public.
It was, well, actually, it was the ZBA subsequently.
Yes, it was
It was the ZBA that voted it down.
Voted
Okay.
down.
Yeah.
So at that
yeah.
time, we did have a housing and community development plan.
Mhm.
So you have one.
Yeah.
So you might want to just take a look through
Okay.
it and see if you're all happy with it.
Mhm.
And then so we do a public hearing on that. Because if you have a housing and community development plan, it has to be readopted every 3 years.
Okay.
And whether it changes doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Sometimes you want to look at it and say, some say specific things, we are going to do a study of the library.
Mm.
And some are, we like nice water, we like nice housing.
Mhm.
So it depends on what you want to see in it.
Okay.
So if you can just look through that if we're going to move forward. And then the last one is an anti-displacement and relocation assistance plan. And this has to be adopted every time you ask for CDBG, it's required. And all that says is if you displace or relocate anybody, that you have to follow the Uniform Relocation Act. And I don't know the extent of what we're talking about, if we're talking about rehabbing to the extent where somebody has to be moved for a little bit,
Mhm.
but we have to come up with a plan.
Okay.
So we can't just be tossing people around, you know?
Well, that's nice, actually.
So we have to come up with a plan and budget. Sometimes we can do all our work while people are still living there, it's not that big of an inconvenience.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're gonna shut down your kitchen and bathroom, and I don't know yet what the plan is, if we're
Okay.
gonna do something like that, and
Uh-huh.
put you up in a different apartment, like we might
Yeah.
keep one open and move you there, but we gotta make sure we account for everything.
Understood.
So that's what that is.
Okay.
If we do move people around at all in a project, then we have to follow that uniform relocation plan.
Okay.
Which is a protection for folks. which
Sure.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
But that, when you adopt that, if you do,
Mhm.
it's for CDBG projects. It's not saying everything you do in town.
Yeah,
It
okay.
specifically says in the plan,
Okay,
when we undertake a CDBG project, we agree to follow the Uniform Relocation Act.
okay,
So those 2 plans are requirements as well.
okay.
And so now, you can talk, oh, sorry.
One quick question. So what they're going to speak to us about is a type of block grant. Is that correct?
A specific.
A specific.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
What they're going to ask you to potentially submit an application for. But this isn't the public hearing, so we don't expect everything to come out. We're
Right.
just going to give you an idea of what we're talking about.
Mhm.
And then we don't ask you to tell us whether you support this or not.
Mhm.
We just say, can we move forward after you've heard this with a public hearing?
Okay.
Will you let us schedule
Okay.
a public hearing?
Yep.
And then we'll agree, present everything
Mhm.
and more detailed, and then you'll take public comment,
Mhm.
and then you can decide whether or not to move forward then.
Okay.
Not yet.
Yeah.
This is just, can we come back again? After
Okay.
you listen to these people, are we
All right.
are we invited back?
Okay,
Back.
sounds good.
My name's Carmen Lorenz. I'm the Executive Director for Laconia Area Community Land Trust. And we've been in existence, next year will be our 25th anniversary. We develop affordable housing in the Lakes region. And we've got 341 apartments all over the Lakes region. Right now we have properties in Laconia, Meredith, Tilton, Wolfboro. And in November, we acquired Ledgewood Estates, just down the street
okay.
here, which is 40 rental apartments there. I don't know how familiar you are with the property, but it's, you know,
I'm familiar with it.
yeah, it's about 40 years old now, and it needs quite a bit of rehabilitation.
Mhm.
So that's the project that we're proposing for the CDBG, would be to use the funds in conjunction with other funds that we would pursue,
Okay.
including low-income housing tax credits and other grants from New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority to rehab that property. And it would be a pretty substantial rehabilitation. So, you know, making it look much nicer, doing all the interiors, a lot of energy efficiency upgrades, new roof, new windows, new sliding doors, new siding, and also putting a sprinkler system in, which would enhance life and safety on the property. So in a nutshell, that's it. It's
Okay.
we acquired the property in conjunction with another property in Meredith. So we will also be asking Meredith to apply for a CDBG grant for that property
Okay.
down there, and we're kind of packaging them both together because that helps us access enough funding to do it the right way.
I see.
Make
Okay.
sure that we have sufficient funds to
Okay.
do the rehab completely. So we'll find out about all those other grants and tax credits probably in the spring. We're working on all the applications right now. So
Okay.
it takes a little bit of time to get all that stuff done.
Okay.
I don't know if you have any questions about the project or about.
Can you
Well, I
explain
do,
the
but,
affordability on that?
Oh, sure.
That's why you bought it.
Yep, so we bought both this property here and the one in Meredith. They were built using USDA rural development financing.
Okay.
So the properties come with rental assistance from USDA.
Yeah.
Which ensures that people that are living there pay 30% of their income
Okay.
for rent.
Okay.
So, so the affordability is something that we won't have any problem meeting the CDBG grant requirements or the other requirements of the tax credits and other funding sources that we're using, because everybody is already in the income brackets that we would need in order to meet
Okay.
those requirements.
I do have questions, but I think they're more suitable for a public hearing. I think I got what I needed to know about the project per se, but if we move to a public hearing, I think that's where a lot of these issues will be discussed. So I will leave it to the board if there are any other questions that you have about the project itself. No?
I do. Who administers the grant?
It's a municipality's responsibility, but we will budget in a CDBG administrator, a consultant. So there will be somebody who basically does the day-to-day paperwork and everything on it. But when it comes time to ordering money, that's an odd way to say it, but to me that's what it is,
Yeah.
ordering money. So say a contractor was in there and says, okay, I earned $100,000 and the architect approved it and these folks approved it. And then it would come to you for you to sign off.
Okay.
But you're not just ordering money for kicks, you're ordering it based on their request. And that's probably the biggest part, is the money has to go through the town, it has
Yeah.
to go through.
Yeah.
So you can, because it does take some time, not a whole lot of town time, but it does take some town time. But you can, if you feel like you want to, you can keep track of those hours and get paid for those. You can get it out of the grant.
Okay.
But also in there will be budgeted money for your lawyer to look over contracts. There will be money budgeted for any advertising that has to be done. Money for audit, if you happen to hit 750 that year, it will be budgeted in so that
Okay.
it covers that part of the single audit.
Mm-hmm.
The intent of CDBG, because again, what community is going to say, okay, if it's going to cost them money, right?
Yeah.
And rightly so, it's your job to make sure taxpayer money is
Of course.
going fairly around, you know? So it's built in, we built in all the money so that it doesn't cost, it doesn't come out of town money. And I've been doing this for 35 years, this is all I do is CDBG, so I work for almost every community, in almost every single county. Unfortunately, you guys aren't getting your fair share of CDBG.
We
I have to say.
we know. We
I
know.
haven't been hanging around.
We
in
know.
Ashland. There's some places I am every single year.
Yep.
Like Laconia. I've done a lot of
It's our
projects
turn.
with these guys, and we do a lot of stuff in Laconia.
Okay.
But anyway, it's
Yeah.
time for you guys to give your fair share. But we budget the money in, and the communities I work for, when I say, you can keep track, keep a timesheet, and we will reimburse you, they find they spend more time keeping track. And so I have no communities. I had one community that did, maybe 2 in
Mhm.
35 years.
Yeah.
And both stopped
Yeah.
and said, it isn't worth our time keeping track because we don't do that much.
Right.
So honestly, when we start a project,
Mhm.
we have to make sure you have a code of ethics, kind of things like that. So if you don't, we help you with that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And you talked about your ADA accessibility.
Mhm.
So if you don't have a 504,
Mhm.
which is an accessibility plan,
Mhm.
which you're supposed to, everybody was, who got federal
We're
funds.
working on it, we're chipping away at it.
It doesn't have to be a perfect plan.
I know.
It just has to be a plan.
Yeah.
And I think in 94, you were all supposed to have that, every community that got any federal funds.
Yeah.
But anyway, we
I don't
help
know
you
if there's
get into
anything on paper or not,
compliance.
but,
We
mhm.
help you get into
Well, that's
compliance
good. That's
with
good.
federal regulations,
Mhm.
which will benefit you for everything,
Yeah.
not just for CDBG. But I think whether you go with this or not, I think you want to think about CDBG.
Mhm.
And there's other programs that CDFA has,
Yeah.
energy programs that are good for municipalities,
Yeah.
which I think are another thing you want to hear about.
Mhm.
On those energy projects, and we can get you in touch with the
Yeah.
people that do this,
Mhm.
you pay back based on your savings.
Mhm.
So, you can't really
Mhm.
lose. And I think Franklin redid all their lights outside, you know? And it sounds expensive, payback's 2 years.
Yeah, I made the switch in my own home, and I was astonished at
And
how
it
quickly the
sounds
money got
really
paid
like, oh my
back.
gosh, that's a lot of money, but
Yeah.
payback's so fast
I
on
know.
some things like that.
Yeah,
So,
big difference.
you know, there's a lot of programs that, you know, we want to kind of open your eyes to that other.
Well, I have your
places are
card.
taking
You know, we'll
advantage.
invite you to an economic development meeting sometime.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay.
And we can get the energy folks up here to talk to you if that helps.
Oh, wonderful,
So,
wonderful.
I mean, I do the labor compliance for the energy programs, because
Mhm.
there's a lot of labor things that we have to do when we get federal funds.
Mhm.
That's why you have a consultant out there who's making sure Davis-Bacon, all these different, Davis-Bacon's wage rates. There's a lot of things that have to be complied with, that's why you have somebody and it's budgeted in. But on the energy, I do the labor compliance, but I don't do the setting up of the loans, but those people come out and talk to you.
Good.
Madam
Yes.
Question for you. So these units would be rental units? They'd be basically subsidized
They
rental
are,
units?
and they have been for
Mhm.
40 years.
40 years.
Yeah.
Okay, and
And
so, I'm sorry.
Nope, go ahead.
So, what will change when this grant goes through? Will they become, I mean, they will,
Nothing.
nothing in terms of what their classification would be?
Correct.
Can you give me an idea of how the benefits of this project would compare and contrast to, say, doing housing cooperatives in the town, perhaps even in that same, you know, those same units?
So I might have mentioned, the units were built with financing from USDA, Rural Development, which
Mhm.
requires them to be rented to people in certain income brackets. And again, the rent that they pay is 30% of their income. So what we did in November when we purchased the properties, because the affordability period was expiring, basically the mortgage with USDA was at its end. And so we worked with USDA basically to refinance or to purchase with a new mortgage
Mhm.
with them. So we have to keep it as affordable housing
Mhm.
for another 30, I forget how long the mortgage is, but
Mhm.
for another 30 years. Don't quote me on 30, but that's how long the affordability period is required to be maintained.
Okay.
So they'll either be in better shape or they'll be in current shape.
Yeah, so
Their affordability period's not the exact same as CDBG, that's minimum 20, that's why you're hearing a couple different years. CDBG's just minimum. So it'll either be not the greatest shape, like it is now, right? And you're gonna have to maintain it that way, or we can make it a little nicer, bring it up to current standard, kind
that's the intent, to bring it up
of
to
safer,
current
healthier
standard.
places.
So a follow-up question. At what point can those units become something other than subsidized housing? Is it after 30 years from now, roughly?
Well, right now, it's 30 years-ish. She's not positive on the requirement. If this project moves forward, CDBG puts 20, she's already got 30, so that's cake. But NIFA will say 99, so it'll be
So
pretty much
for 100
whatever.
years?
Yeah. Right, 99? Well, it
Yeah.
depends,
No.
40, they have some programs 40 years.
No,
some
you're
programs
absolutely correct.
99.
The low-income housing tax credits have a 99.
Forever.
affordable.
But at least they'll be nice,
Okay.
because they're not in great, perfect shape right
No.
now.
They're
It'd be nice
in
to
rough
stick
shape.
them up.
They're
Oh,
fading,
yeah.
I know, so
Yeah.
they need a lot of work.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have one.
Yes,
You
sir.
said you've done work for energy efficiency with your block grants. Now, my question is, have you ever done any work with communities that own their own electric company? Because in our town, like with the LED lighting as example, our electric department is in lieu of taxes for our lighting, so it's kind of a...
Yeah, I'm not an expert on that. That's why I say I do the labor compliance on
Okay.
that. They just tell me, go out and do this job. So that's why if we can have Joe, or the guy who's in charge of all this stuff, talk to you, that would be great, because he's the expert on this. And I'm not an energy expert. We have experts that will do an audit and tell you how much money you're gonna save. Is it worth it for you guys? Not enough towns are doing it. I wish more towns would do it, because
Yeah.
I don't get it, because your repayment's based on your savings.
I know.
Right.
Where are you losing? You're no worse than you were, and when you hit your
Yeah.
payback period, which could be as little as 2 years, that's
Right.
great.
It's an excellent question, Harold, and I think we should get more information on this. For the
We-
time
we
being, I
also
think we
work
ought to
with
just
another-
decide on this project.
Another
Yeah.
energy guy who has his hand in all the rebates, he knows
Mhm.
where all those are coming from, so he helps put the package together often too. So
Yeah.
Okay.
we maximize the maximum of grants they can get and minimize the loan they have to take.
Okay, thank you.
We'll be in touch.
Yeah,
Right?
I wish
Yes.
more would be in touch.
Yeah.
It's kind of silly not to, especially now when there's some grants available that probably won't be there for forever.
Yeah, I know, you need to take
2020.
advantage of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
That Flintstone, no, that Jensen
And-
year.
Are there any more questions on this particular proposal?
No.
Because I'd like to move on. Would anyone like to make a motion that we allow them to move to a public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
No second.
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of allowing this project to go to the next step of a public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, granted. So I think you'll be in touch with Charlie on when to notify the public and how to set that up?
Yep, so we meet every second and fourth.
First and third Mondays.
So we'll probably be the third,
Okay,
because we need our timing for the newspaper.
got it. All right, well, thank you. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you very much.
And again, you're welcome to stay, but you're also more than welcome to leave.
Hard to tear me away.
Uh-huh.
I just came from a commissioners meeting, I'm like, really? I have
Yeah,
too
you
much
burned
money
out.
today.
I believe me, I understand.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. We have minutes from July 10th. Are there any comments, corrections?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Line 14 on page 1. I don't believe that it was accurate that the chair said that we allow public comments. I recall you stating that at the opening public comments at the beginning, we did not allow public comments that were off agenda. However,
Right.
I do recall you saying that the latter public comments at the end of the meeting, that you do allow comments on what we speak about
Yeah,
during the meeting.
absolutely, I did.
And further, I remember that you said that we talk about it in
Right.
terms of, okay.
You are correct. I did say I, tend to allow leeway on that as well,
Okay.
but, something, as of right now, we haven't made any further decision, but you are correct in
Okay.
your corrections.
Okay, so yeah, I'd just like that to
So how do you
amend
want
it
it
to
stated?
reflect that.
Just say that, said that the board allows comments on items discussed during the agenda and will consider other options in the future, or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay? Anything else?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Let's see, line 38. Let's see, yeah. So one
Same
of the things.
page? Same page?
Oh, yeah, page 1, yeah. One thing I'd like to add there is that the Parks and Rec Director was given the task to investigate options for further action. Also, I'd like to have in there noted that I did encourage the board to seek a timely resolution that balanced efficacy with financial considerations to prevent similar, future events.
Okay.
So I'd like the minutes to reflect that, please.
Okay?
Did you
Wait a minute.
Yeah. Yeah.
You said line 38?
Yeah.
Can you tell me how you'd like that to be stated?
Okay, yep. So I have here, Shivlingam encouraged the board to seek a timely resolution that balanced efficacy with financial considerations to prevent similar future events.
You're on page 1?
Yes, page 1.
It's just additional
It's just
information,
additional
Wendy. It's not a
information.
change.
Yeah, it's not a change, it's
Yeah.
just an
Okay, so say that again.
approximation of where it would go.
All right.
Sure. So I have here, Sheblingham encouraged the board to seek a timely resolution
Okay.
that balanced efficacy with financial considerations to prevent similar future events. And then the other item that I had was that the Parks and Rec Director was tasked with investigating options for action.
And that comes right after that.
Yeah. Any other comments?
I have a few. On page 1, line 30, where we were talking about the hillside there, and it goes
Yes.
down, it says, Vice Chair Lehman suggested using telephone poles and a backstop. I would like
Oh, it
that
was as a
backstop.
yes.
But then it should read, which could be used for movies in the park or advertising.
Okay.
Because you could use both sides of it.
Right, got it.
Same page, line 20, it's just the reference to lines 41 and 42, not 42 and 43, just for clarity.
Okay.
The only other thing I saw,
41.
41 and 42 instead of 43 and 42 and 43. Page 3, line 24. Vice Chair Lamus reported the 4th of July, that line. It says, it should say, went very well with many of the volunteers needed attending. Because it was kind of the 75%, that was not really, didn't understand that.
We haven't had the follow-up meeting.
No, the meeting, the meeting after, the meeting. We
Oh,
had the-
oh, oh,
We had
right.
the meeting and then we had people come to the
Yes.
4th of July, because, you say you're gonna be
Right.
there and you were there, and we had
Right.
pretty much everybody show up there.
I see
So
what you-
it
I see what
was-
you're saying.
It was great, I want the people to see that. And that was it.
Okay. Lee, Casey, any comments?
I abstain.
You, oh, you're in here, okay.
Yeah, I've got one.
Yes?
I just got a couple.
Okay,
things.
go ahead, Casey.
Yeah.
Page 1, line 35, right in the middle, right after NHDOT, there should probably be a period there.
Yes.
What was that?
Yeah, right after NHDOT,
Oh.
Yep.
there should be a period.
And then
And,
the page 2, line 2, it says provide information about the greater and. It's probably
Oh, yes.
greater
Okay.
and.
greater and.
A space, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense, okay.
Great.
Uh-huh.
Line
Anything
2.
else? Yes.
Thank you.
Mine's not-
On page 3, page 3, line 17, I was thinking that it would be good to clarify that the $500 is to come
Oh,
from the
yeah.
Heritage Commission, because
Yeah.
it doesn't seem.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry to interrupt.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Okay.
And I was gonna speak to that.
Okay.
The motion was to take it out of the capital reserve fund.
Yeah,
We would prefer that, or I'd prefer it be the build and maintenance line, not the capital reserve
Okay.
funds. I mean, to go to the trustees for $500.
Yeah.
yeah, okay, so
We don't really have
let's
to.
reflect the minutes to say it was accurately
Yeah.
conveyed at that meeting, but we can discuss that as an amendment tonight. So,
Yeah.
rather than put it in the minutes, Wendy, because it doesn't reflect what we actually said.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sure one
Yes.
final thing. On page 3, line 6, just prior to the Vice Chair Lemos motioned, I'd like it to read that Sheblingham expressed reservations about the ecological impact and that the tree, because the tree would not be replaced, or that there is not a proposal
Okay,
to replace the tree.
Expressed.
reservations.
Reservations. About the ecological impact, and that the tree, that there was not a proposal to replace the tree.
That there's not a proposal.
Yeah, that there wasn't, yeah, because the original proposal didn't include that.
Charlie, did you have something in addition, or was it just that?
Oh, that was the
that
one.
was the
We,
issue?
yeah, we noticed that it wasn't in the minutes that the motion was to take out of capital
Right.
reserve funds. Mine, A, that needs to be in there.
Yeah.
And then B,
We'll bring it up.
requesting the change.
Yes, okay, got it. Any other comments? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of July 10th as amended.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Okay. Thank you. Consent agenda. For the week of 7/17/2017, the general fund manifest is 276,000, wish it were 2,000, 430, and the payroll manifest 15,707. In addition, the town clerk has left a couple of documents that need signatures. One is the MS1 extension request form, and this is just for the evaluation. We're just asking for an extension, the assessing. We have signed it. Technically, we're the assessors, even though we don't do the assessing, and this is just simply to ask for an extension. So we need 2 more signatures on that. And then the other thing, again, from the tax collector, was a request to abate. There were 3 items. One, Vernon King amount was not transferred when Mr. Verne passed away, and it shows an outstanding 2016 tax, which has gone through the leaning process. That's the amount of $13.84. Then there were 2 other charges that had been paid, but were posted in the wrong spot, and she just wants us to sign that those corrections have been made, so it needs to come off the rolls. So I will pass that along for signature.
Selectman Lamos wants to revise the minutes from June 19th.
Oh, yes, I went and I listened to that section of the tape, and what I wrote as a quote, his final question was, given the salt in the lagoons, has it damaged the lagoons? And Mr. Science said, quote, "I can't say that it has, but I can say that the concentrations are probably small enough since they're at a concentration that's still allowable for drinking, and it would not have that negative effect." That was the quote from the tape. So the minutes probably ought to reflect, rather than an interpretation, the exact quote.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Do you remember what section that was in the minutes, Harold?
That was right here. That was page 2, and it was line 41 and 42. So probably the easiest would be just to start at the engineers, redact that, and then stop at not the case and then begin your next sentence with water and sewer. Systems have always been in 100% compliance in DES. That's factual.
So now it's going to say the engineers from Novus Engineering and the commissioners from the Water and Sewer Department? And then,
Well, no, the engineer from Novus stated, in response to the question of, basically, has the salt in the water damaged the lagoons?
The enzymes, yes.
Yeah.
The questions of the enzymes.
The quote was, and I can write this out for you, Wendy, if that would be easier, just as, quote, "I can't say that it has, but I can say that the concentrations are probably small enough since they're at a concentration that's still allowable for drinking, and it would not have that negative effect."
I'm going to just pass it along.
Yeah, I'm going to need my agenda back, though. Or I can look at yours. Let me have yours.
Okay, all right.
If you can't read my writing, just let me know.
She can get it after. she said.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Oh.
Department heads, Chief Heath.
Yes. Per the notice that I sent out last week, I think you all received it, was advised 3 weeks ago by Homeland Security and Emergency Management that our hazard mitigation plan is due for renewal, revision renewal this year, or 2018. And getting ahead, I'd like to proceed with applying for the grant, similar to the manner in which we revised the emergency operations plan last year, where the town fronts the money, and in this case, 25% of it is service in kind by the people who will be doing the revising, the citizens and department heads and such who will be involved in the program. And at the end of the project, we submit the work to Homeland Security, and they reimburse the town in full for that.
Nice.
Just
And when is all this
The emergency
gonna-
operations plan went that way last year, so it doesn't actually cost the town anything.
Right.
So I'm here this evening to ask for permission to proceed with the application process for the grant.
When is this due, and when does the
Well,
work
the
get
grant
done?
period's opened, and I'd like to move forward as quickly as we can, so then we can make plans. Also, in my letter to you, I noted that I am recommending that we use Mapping and Planning Associates, whom we used last year. They were excellent in working us through the process of revising the emergency operations plan. They're familiar with the town, they're familiar with the people involved in most of these meetings. And, you know, in this case, last year we had to put it out to bid for the emergency operations plan. However, the hazard mitigation plan is not required by HSEM to go out to bid. Therefore, I would recommend that we use the same people. They're already familiar with us, and they work very well.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the application for the procedure to fill out the application for the grant?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Steve, thank you very much. Public Works,
Yeah, I agree. Thank- I can speak to that.
okay,
Can I just say something real quick before you get to that?
All right.
certainly.
I just want to publicly address Steve Lightford, who passed away.
Oh.
Condolences to his family.
Okay,
He was a
thank you.
13-plus year employee of the Highway Department,
Oh,
so just
All right.
wanted to...
I'm very
make
sorry to hear
announcement,
that.
So,
All right, thank you for that, Tim.
I thought you were going to say something else.
I didn't put that on,
In
my
case
part
the
of
public
this.
doesn't know, Tim has given his resignation letter as of last Friday, and he is resigning as of 2 weeks from today. So-
2 weeks from last...
On
From last-
August 4th will be your
August
last
4th is
day.
last day. Okay.
2 weeks from Friday, actually, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Which we accepted with regret.
Yeah, and stop grinning, Tim, okay.
Sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Chuck.
And the second part is Mr. Simmellingham wanted to discuss about possibility of having a road agent.
Right, and I didn't just bring it up because I have some thoughts on the matter, but I do. But also because there was another selectman that also, I believe, may have some thoughts on the matter similarly. So, I don't know if the other selectman would like to start, or...
Well, I know that I had suggested that we look at road agents simply because I want to ensure that whoever we put in this position has those skill sets. I mean, clearly, this is a major responsibility. But I'm not as hung up on the title as I was, because I want to ensure, personally, that that person fulfills more than just roads, that we have a number of things, including building maintenance, just for example, and I'm going to say a little bit more about that later. There are a number of things on the list, and so whatever the job description is, that piece of it that's road agent is key to me, to ensure that we have those skill sets. So it's not as much of a title as it is a skill set.
That person oversees also the solid waste facility.
Yes,
So
yes.
it's not strictly a road agent.
Exactly.
It just takes care of
That's
roads,
right.
Exactly.
piles and coal patches.
Right.
And the
It's-
parks.
I mean, we are probably not, and excuse me for just kind of putting my 2 cents in.
That's all right, Jim.
Yeah.
Anyone for 25? Go ahead.
You know, there's so much more to it. I mean, they call it, we got changed to Public Works 6, 7 years ago, whatever it was.
2011.
2011, okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're not true Public Works, because you'll find Public Works that do water and sewer, but
Yeah.
we manage everything else.
Yes,
As
you
far-
have.
Like you said, buildings, grounds, you name it, we do it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so when you, just be careful when you talk about road agent duties.
Exactly, and that's why I frankly rethought it,
So-
because I think the perception is, if we were a big town, they'd probably be a road agent, and then they'd be a public works department who took care of other stuff as well. We're a small town, and our department has to encompass all of those things. So, you know, roads is major, but obviously you have to do a lot of things that fall under the category of public works.
I mean,
So-
we're the catch-all for a lot of
Absolutely, you
departments,
have.
building, maintenance,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
whatever they need, we do, so.
Yeah, we know. Yes, Tasha Singer?
Thank you. So my thoughts are on the matter that I think it's a good item to consider, having a road agent. In terms of having other items that the road agent covers, according to the Knowing the Territory on page 63 and 64, especially on page 64, it actually mentions that other activities, as voted by the town, may be given to the road agent for their responsibilities. And they have a list here of things that are, such things that could be included, such as collection of rubbish, public dumps, parks, cemeteries, playgrounds, beaches, forests, shade and ornamental trees. And further, the fact that you can have a road agent elected or appointed for up to a 3-year term, with the approval of a town meeting vote, of course, that would allow for continuity, because I know there's some discussion about making sure that there's continuity from year to year with the budget and such. So there is an allowance for continuity. And also, I see it, especially if it's an elected position, which is what I personally would advocate for, it allows for oversight and accountability from not only the people, but from the Board of Selectmen. And I know that there's been some concern about, in the past, the chief of police being elected and how that, went. But as I'm reading through the Knowing the Territory, page 63 through 65, and there's a copy in the town office in case the public would like to review those pages, it seems pretty clear to me that comparing the police chief as an elected position to comparing the road agent as an elected position is really comparing apples and oranges. There's very much a different situation in terms of elected police chief. So I would encourage the board, when considering this option, not to just assume that if things did not go in a desirable fashion with the police chief, an elected police chief years ago, that would also necessarily be the same case with the road agent.
I believe that in the past, the town voted to make this a appointed position rather than elected.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And it is also my assumption that if we were to change that, it would have to be by warrant article, not by this
Absolutely.
board.
Yeah.
And I would suggest if that's something that's meaningful for you, you can certainly, get a petition warrant article. And we can discuss it as a board at some point if, we would support such a thing. I don't think this is the time to discuss it. I personally am totally opposed to an elected position for a variety of reasons, but, if at some point you want to make a case, that's fine, but I don't think this is the time. Yes, Tim?
I want to comment just on what you just said. I think you can compare an elected police chief and an elected road agent. There's still a skill set that you need to have to oversee that department. I mean, I'm responsible for the infrastructure of the town, so you can't just, if you go to elected, there's a potential, as in the case we ran into years ago with the police chief. You run on, and I will say it worked out great for the town of Ashland. You were lucky. But, so.
We were lucky.
But you have that potential of somebody running and winning on sheer name alone and with no background in the field whatsoever.
Absolutely.
And we haven't elected a road agent in this town since 1976.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a reason why towns are getting away from it. And I think I expressed that to you the other day. And I have no bias in this what I'm talking about now, because I'm done in 2 weeks, so it doesn't affect me as far as losing my job or anything like that. It's just, you said something about continuity, but there's that 2 or 3 years part where you might lose somebody. So if you spend all this money and time in training somebody, and then somebody decides they don't like that person, they're gonna start a campaign to vote that person out. I see it we have a couple towns north of us, and every 2 years, you see the bickering back and forth during election time.
Yeah.
The mudslinging towards the current road agent to somebody who wants to be the road agent. I think you keep it the way it is, call it what you want. I mean, that's just my opinion. I think you need to have somebody that has a background, some sort of administrative and road background to appoint. I don't think you can just put it out for election and have somebody run because they want to run. I believe you're going to lose the power over that person because it's an elected official, and there's really not much the selectmen are going to have to say over an elected official.
Absolutely. I was
So
gonna
you-
mention
you
that
lose-
as well.
You lose
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
I don't think it's the right way to go for the small town of Ashland. I think, again, no bias on my part, I think the way we do it, the way we've been doing it since the mid-'70s works with the town of Ashland.
Well, as I said,
Mark
this-
Over was
yeah,
here for 38 years,
we know.
you know, so, and.
And I still haven't forgiven him for
So
retiring, but that's okay.
You know, I had 15 years under him
yeah.
before I took over after he left.
Right.
So I had some experience to that job.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can just hand it over to somebody that may not have any experience.
No, and I mean, I totally agree with that. If you look at the skill sets that are required for this job, it's just too important to leave up to a popularity contest that, you know, might have no relevance to the duties at hand. So, I mean, I could run, and I don't know anything about it.
Madam Chair.
So, yes.
In closing, I just want to say that while it seems that you would like to dismiss out of hand this issue, and it could be raised as a petition warrant article, I would also like to remind you that as a board, we have the opportunity to put warrant articles on. So it was actually relevant for me at this time to bring it before the board for consideration. And I'd appreciate if, you know, if it was respected in that way, not
No,
just
I did say that the board could decide whether or not to
She did.
support it. I absolutely did. I just said that this is something we discuss when we get into the budget process, is the warrant articles that we either approve of that come to us or ones that we want to put forward. And last year, we, the board, put several forward. And if we have that discussion and the board majority wants to put forward that as a warrant article, obviously it will be discussed. I'm not trying to dismiss it out of hand. So.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else on that?
Yeah.
Well, Tim,
I'm up.
again, on behalf of the board, we appreciate all the work that you have done for us
Yes.
over the last several years. I know it hasn't been an easy road, no pun intended. But, you know, we've appreciated your attendance at these meetings and your responsiveness and the untold hours you put into it. I mean, I've heard you backing up in the cul-de-sac at the top of Smith Hill at 2 in the morning, making sure that, you know, we can get down the hill safely, and it's much appreciated.
Yes.
So, thank you, and we wish you all the best. And as I said, I know how much you love this town, and I intend to be calling you more often than you might want.
Okay.
For help. Okay. Any other comments before we move on?
I would
Yes.
just like to mention, what intrigued me about the road agent was the fact, as far as the managerial side, you know, I know that we had spoken of that in the past, and I think that that is one thing that has drawn me to that. And like you said, no matter what you name it, I think if we put the emphasis on whoever tries to fill your shoes, that they try to, you know, have the same management, you know, skill set, and that they abide by the same thought process, that it'll be an easy transition.
Right.
Absolutely.
And we will discuss, I think this is the time for us to review the job description
Yep.
and make sure that it encompasses all of the things that we need.
It
Yes,
is.
Tony?
I'd just like to comment about Tim and his years of service to the town, not only from a department head standpoint, but from a resident, knowing Tim my whole life. You know, he served the town very well. I think it's a crying shame of really some of the reasons why he's
I know.
leaving,
Yeah.
I know.
because you're losing a great person.
Yeah.
That's what I do know. I will tell you that all of us department heads work very well together.
Yes.
Now there's going to be somebody new in the mix who we may or may not know. There could be personality conflicts. But I would just like to say thank you to Tim for all his service to this town.
Absolutely, Tony.
Okay?
Yes.
I think he's made a great personal decision, as far as I'm concerned, by going to work where he's going to work. And I think it was a win-win situation for him and the place where he's going. I don't think it's a win-win situation for the highway department. But
It's kind of left us with a struggle, but
no,
we'll
it
figure it
has,
out,
but,
yeah.
you know, we will get through it.
Yeah.
And I can tell you one thing about Tim Parker, he's not gonna turn his back on the town.
Oh, I
No.
know
So
that.
whoever
No.
takes over down there, if they need some guidance from him, he's certainly gonna
Oh,
help
yeah.
them out.
Yeah, remind me, Tim, I need to set up a meeting with you next week and pick your brain before you leave.
So I
okay?
would just like to thank him for all the stuff that
Yeah.
he's done from a resident standpoint and also from the chief of police standpoint.
Thank you.
Nice.
Absolutely. Anybody else want to make a comment? I'll open it up to the public at this point. No? Okay.
Don't all jump at once.
Thank you.
Again, thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tim.
Yes, Tony, that was great. Okay, town
Okay.
administrator.
Yeah, I put purchase order policy on here because I just needed clarity from the board. You know, our policy says it's 1,500, I heard it's 2,000. I guess I just need feedback from the board. What do you want to see and how do you want it done?
Well, I know in the past, it was probably 2,000, and we have lowered it from time to time when we've gotten nervous about our budget, just so that we can keep an
Yeah.
eye on the big expenditures. So, you tell us, where are we?
I checked
Are we
purchase-
comfortable? Can we leave it
Yeah.
at 2,000? I
Yeah.
mean, they're not going to be spending stuff that they haven't already put in their budget anyway,
The
unless they come
policy
to
says
us.
1,500.
Yeah.
Purchase
And
order policy.
what do you think would be reasonable?
I think it's reasonable.
Okay.
And I thought if we get a PO, like the chief had, we could put it in your signature file and then put it on the consent agenda.
Consent agenda.
And if there's further discussion,
Yep.
we can just talk about it at our meetings.
Sure. Anybody else
Does
have
that work?
any?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's good. Thank you.
Good.
So can I follow up with that?
Sure.
So there's no amount for you to sign off on? Because it used to be that we had 1,500 and then the town administrator could sign off on to 2,500.
Yeah, I think
Or
you're right,
something like-
Tony. We
something
did,
like
we
that.
did
I don't
have
know
a
the
second
numbers.
level.
I just,
We don't.
it gets complicated. I can see some of it when we're purchasing out beyond what we really wanted in our budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when we're spending money in
Yeah.
our budget, some of the stuff is 2,500, 3,000.
Right.
Whatever it is.
And we did do that in the past, and again, as long as we're in good shape, I personally have no issue with that. Charlie, you have a good financial head on your shoulders, and,
It's up-
you
up to
work
you
very
guys.
well with department heads,
Yeah.
so,
I just want to make sure I know what the program is, so I don't
Yeah,
get my
no.
hands slapped later on, because I didn't do,
Right.
I didn't go through the right process.
Well,
If I
that's
know
why
the
it's on the
process,
agenda,
then I'll
Tony,
do the
so-
process, and it is what
Yeah.
it is. But if there's a certain amount that he can sign off on too, then
It's up to the
we'll all
board.
know that.
anybody want to throw out a number or make a comment, or?
Well, the last time I can recall us having this or you having the conversation, I wasn't on the board at the time, when I sat on the budget committee, was the purchase of some radios for DPW, I believe it was about a year and a half ago. And at the time, I believe, was it $1,000 we were at, and we upped it to 1,500 that time? Is that what that was? It was
What, as
1,700.
far as the department head?
Yeah.
It used to be $750 for a
Right.
department head, $1,500 for the administrator. Anything over $1,500 had
Yeah.
to go to the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But then in transition, before Charlie was hired, you let the department heads go up to 1,500.
Okay.
and then
Right.
that changed.
Right, I remember that
I don't
motion.
believe there was ever a cap made after that for the town
Okay.
administrator.
Okay,
But that's the way it used to be, was
Yeah.
750 and 1,500.
yeah.
That's right.
That's
I
right.
think that's.
All right, I think that's reasonable.
That's right.
But, to kind of, sorry.
No, that's okay, go ahead, Tim.
750
You're
really
still a
is-
department head.
750 really isn't a lot.
It's not enough.
For a department head to be able to spend
No.
without,
No.
you know, it's just, even 1,500, like
Yeah.
Tony said,
And again, I think that 750 came when we were really under a budget
Yeah.
crunch.
probably. yeah.
Because we wanted to make sure we had a handle on where the money was going, in
It
case
was.
we had to stop spending for something. But, we have a well-defined budget, and you guys have put together your list of needs, and it's really not necessary at this point to be too nervous, I guess.
No,
Okay.
no.
So, are we comfortable with just leaving it at 1,500?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay, overtime compensation and impact on the budget line. We had, came across a matter where we have an employee that works for two different departments. And long story short, when this happens, the employee, if that employee works overtime, they are entitled to overtime compensation. The board had a non-meeting with legal counsel to clarify around the FLSA law, and long story short, we need a determination as to if this occurs in the future, that there's overtime, which line item does it hit in the budget for the department?
And I believe you've done some calculations as to how much it might cost?
Yeah, it's based off of a weighted average, and so it's not quite time and a half because the time is paid already
Yeah.
from both departments. That extra time by the law takes it at half that. So, for an example, if the employee makes about $15 an hour in one department, then $16 in another, the weighted average is about $7. And if you multiply it, say, by 10 hours overtime, it's about $70.
For any given week?
Depending on the week
The
and
number
the
of-
overtime.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And so our options are fire department or public works at this
Yep.
point. You have recommended public works. I know Tim has objected to that. We have fire chief here. I'm willing to hear your concerns.
You can help.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah,
No, at this point, I mean, it's something we've got to do. Obviously, the whole thing, I'm not happy about.
no,
but,
it's unfortunate.
It's amazing that we survived this long doing it the way we've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah,
And,
it's a shame.
It certainly is a concern, but I don't think my concerns are necessarily relevant to how we're going to divvy that up. So whatever you folks decide, we'll deal with.
Was somebody complain or what's?
Yeah, somebody complained.
Anonymously,
Oh,
which shouldn't happen.
I think that to have a non-biased opinion on it, that if you look at the numerical side of it, the monetary side, that it should be based on the smallest offset of a budget. Say you have, say, $70. Well, if you have, I'm just throwing numbers out there, if you have a $100,000 budget, that $70 will be a lot more in that than a $400,000 budget. So I think we really need to weigh that before we make a choice. You know, if your biggest expense is labor in one department, and that's where the overtime's coming from, then that's gonna affect that department more than if your biggest expense is materials. Because my understanding is on the fire department, most likely your biggest variable, undetermined variable, is your labor that you need to pay out, because you never know when that phone's gonna ring.
Or who's
So we need to
available.
weigh that, because we can foresee, and nothing against Department of Public Works, we can foresee that with the exception of snow, because we can't do anything about snow. But we can look at that in your cost and your budget for the year, but I think that we have to look at it on the fire department side, that his whole budget can be turned upside down merely if we have, well, if we had an arsonist in town, as an example.
Yeah, I know, God
And we don't want to
forbid.
say that.
No, I know,
but
thank you, bite your tongue.
just a thought.
Yeah.
So we have to weigh that.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Harold, but, yes, Tim,
I guess you
yes,
just-
Tim.
no, it is what it is.
I know.
I mean, either way, like, Steve knows now that he is probably gonna have to add more to his salary line if you choose his budget.
Right,
Probably right now, my budget overtime line it's not gonna be a huge hit.
right,
But if it is, and we have a winter where we're getting a lot of time, and then, we have to figure that out and say that person goes to a lot of calls, and that's also hitting the overtime line, probably not gonna overspend that line, but there's the potential to spend a lot more than you can.
yeah,
Or usually do.
Yeah.
So, at some point, whether he puts it in his budget or I put it in my budget, it's gonna have to be explained to the budget committee when they ask, why do we have
Exactly.
to increase? Why did
Exactly.
you spend over, or why did you spend this much? So either way, I guess 6 of one, half dozen of the
Yeah.
other.
I mean, overtime is always our best guesstimate anyway.
Yeah.
Because we've
Yes.
had mild winters where we've had very little, and then we had a winter like last year when we had a whole lot more. And we just have to build in an amount that we can live with. And sometimes we're gonna go over budget, and hopefully we'll stay within budget or under. And there's no way to predict, so,
But I
it
just-
really
To
doesn't
his
matter.
point.
Explain it very clearly to the budget committee that why this is happening.
Yep, yep,
I mean, we could make a transfer, an implicit transfer, if that was the case.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your overtime goes way over, you
Yeah.
could transfer.
Yeah, no, I mean, and we're
Like
a
to.
line budget, so I know at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter
No,
what
it
line
doesn't.
it comes out of.
Yeah.
but-
Madam Chair?
yes.
So, a couple things. First, to speak to the public concern that was mentioned anonymously, my understanding is, from hearing input from the public about this, there were 2 concerns, both of which have been addressed in our conversations prior to this. One was where the money was coming from and if somebody was being paid out of one or both departments. That's been resolved. And then 2 was the amount of hours, whether or not responding to a call was taking away, too much time. Now, when we met the other day, Chief Heath showed me a breakdown of the hours. I'm personally convinced that there's not an excess of time that's being deducted from the DPW. I just wanted to put that out there because if we just address the money, there may still be a concern among the public regarding the time spent. And so after reviewing it, I think it looks reasonable. Yeah.
Okay.
I would
Yes.
just like to make one more comment on
Okay.
this, is, yes, it became an issue. It probably shouldn't have. Yes, we found out we've been doing it wrong. We're going to abide by the law, we're gonna do it right. But what I'd like to say is, the town is fortunate to have people on multiple departments in this town.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whether we're working for the Public Works or the Fire Department, the Electric Department, whatever, we're providing a service to the community.
Yes.
Yes.
That we need to. I mean, Steve will attest that sometimes it's hard getting a truck out of the barn during the day.
Yep.
I took a leave of absence, and he, kept asking me, when you come back, I need somebody. So that's why, one of the, the reason why I got back on is to help get a truck out during the day.
Yeah.
So I just want to emphasize that the more people we have around during the day, the better it is for everybody. Because you
Yes.
never know when you might need that truck at your house.
Well,
Whether it
I've
be a
heard
medical or fire.
so many stories
Yeah.
So-
from so many people about how the minute it happened, there were these people just showing up, whether it's public works or police or fire, people just come out and help each other. And that's what this town should be about, and it's a shame. Yes, we have been technically doing it wrong, but I also understand that back in the mill days, all the guys would leave the mill and go out and help. And that's
Fruitburg,
part of what made this town great.
Everybody
so,
was able to
yeah.
leave work to go to a call.
Yeah.
And that's the way it's been. And it's unfortunate that there had to be a concern or complaint
Yeah.
over it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we're providing a service to everybody in
Absolutely.
town.
And we
Yeah.
should all be very proud of that.
So-
Madam Chair?
Yes.
One thing I'd like to say specifically about that, being a former EMT and on-call firefighter myself, we definitely have gratitude, and I hear that throughout the community, the gratitude that there is for the fire department and the EMS services. I think there is still, and I don't think it's the case yet, but I think there is an argument to be made that we need to be attentive to how much time could be taken away from another department. At this time, I think it's a reasonable amount of time. If it starts to, and I have total trust that if it starts to get 10, 15% of the time, 20% of someone's time, of course, the department heads are going to probably bring that forward. So I just want to, say that I don't think that necessarily a concern about, how somebody is spending their hours or where they're being paid or whatever. I don't think that necessarily means that there's a lack of gratitude for the services that are being provided. And then I want to get back to the budget stuff, where to, address this and which line. My thought is that for this year, this budget year, my thought is that we remove it from the DPW line. And here's why. Because we just learned that people cannot be paid both, and they were previously being paid from both the DPW and the fire department, which frees up money in the DPW that would have been paid and now is not being paid. So I think that allows for coverage. And then what I would offer for consideration for the future, subsequent years, is that it be put in the fire department's line, and here's why. Because I believe that the budget committee and the people would be most sympathetic to raising the budget that's allocated for the fire department. So that's my thoughts.
Okay, well, that's something we can take up when we start preparing our budget as to where we put it moving forward. And those are certainly considerations that we should take into account. Thank you, Tasha Singer. All right, any other comments? Can we move on?
No, I need a vote.
You need a vote. Oh, yes, you need a vote. Would somebody like to make a motion where this money should come from, let's just say for this current year?
I'd like to move that the money to cover overtime. Okay, be deducted from the DPW, which line do you?
Overtime line?
The overtime line of
Okay.
the DPW.
Is there a second?
For the remainder of this budgetary year.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Okay. I have another item that came
Okay.
across my
All
desk
right.
this morning
Oh.
that I want to notify the board about. Sorry, it's not on the
That's
agenda. The police chief notified me first thing this morning that the speed bump at the town beach was sawed off.
Oh,
Yeah. Go right ahead. I have a picture if you want to see
So
it.
one thought that it's just an interesting correlation, correlation is not causation, okay? But it's just an interesting correlation that subsequent to our previous discussion about the speed bump, that the said speed bump is sawed off and vanished. That makes me a little concerned. I'm wondering if the chief of police has some thoughts, suggestions?
Well, I do have thoughts, but, sometimes I go to the extreme when people are doing stuff like this, because they don't understand what they're causing here. What you're causing is now longer temporary ones that are there for 3 months. Now you're gonna have one that's gonna be paved in there possibly, and be there for 365 days a year.
Yeah.
Okay, because we can't tolerate this stuff,
No, we can't.
No, we
okay?
cannot.
That's vandalism.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, maybe what they don't realize is that they're actually causing the town all kinds of money. Because they're gonna replace it, they're gonna buy another one and stick there. And then what's gonna happen is the town's gonna start buying cameras to put up to protect all their property.
Game cameras.
And then we're gonna start prosecuting people, and it's not gonna be able to be done by a game camera. Okay? Because I have game cameras. Game cameras are great for getting a picture and getting 30 seconds of video. But when you put them in a high traffic area, that chip gets filled up so quickly, you'll be spending every waking moment checking that chip to figure out what went on. So now you enter another time thing into it for the police department to do.
Right.
But if you have a camera that's recording 24/7, 365 days a year, you're gonna get all the stuff that goes on there. Okay? So these people that are doing this think it's funny, maybe they think they're gonna get their way, but the fact of the matter is, I don't think they're going to.
No.
Because I think the town really needs to consider permanent speed bumps there
Yeah.
because of this action.
Okay,
certainly
so
something to
to that
consider,
point,
yeah.
I was talking to Ann. Ann is probably going to order and buy another one.
I have 3 more weeks of camp.
Three more scam. We did talk, Tony and Tim and I, about putting some paving. Apparently Levitt Hill is supposed to be paved by another company, I guess. It was a project that was approved by the planning board 3 years ago to have
This
Levitt.
is part of the development
The
up
part of
there?
the development.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
The thought was maybe we could do that. But we don't know when that's gonna happen. So,
Yeah.
in the meantime, we thought about buying another speed bump.
I don't think we have any choice, we don't have enough time to consider anything
No.
else, but to Tony's point, something we ought to talk about before next summer happens. This is
Absolutely.
just outrageous, you know?
We can't be over there, the police department can't be
No.
over there all the time.
No.
Right.
You know,
Okay?
again,
So-
somebody's inconvenience or lack of comfort driving over one small section of road doesn't,
down.
I know,
You're there because people would
it's
slow
not
down.
as important as our children's safety, so,
So-
you know,
Here's another thing we need to consider, because I went over there and did a little looking around. We need to post speed limit there, okay?
Yeah.
Not that I think they're gonna obey the speed
No.
limit, but it will give us teeth when we're making a stop.
Yep.
That
Yeah.
it's posted 15 miles an hour
Yeah.
for
Right.
that first stretch.
Yep.
And then 25 miles an hour after that.
Yeah.
Most of the roads in town are 25 miles an hour. When a road's not posted, then it's 30,
I know.
assuming 30 miles an
I
hour.
know.
That's pretty fast
It
by
is.
that beach, 30 miles an
Yeah.
hour.
It is.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Okay, so I think we need to entertain looking at that.
I think
as
you're
well.
right, yeah.
Just because that beach thing there is very, it can be very dangerous.
I know, I know.
Because you got little kids.
I know.
Yeah.
Mommy picks up her stuff and Junior, he wants to run off to play at the
Oh,
thing and the
yeah.
car's coming.
I know,
Yeah.
So, that's the other thing.
okay.
You know, I was pretty upset about it today when I got the message about the, I mean, it's just ridiculous.
It
I
is
don't know
very
what people are
ridiculous.
thinking.
Now, could we use our line for buildings maintenance if we wanted to put a hardwired camera either in the maple tree adjacent to either the beach house or upon the covered bridge, because those are both town-owned properties?
I think that's something we're gonna have to talk about
Okay.
more in detail.
I'm just pondering.
No,
and
we've
thinking.
got to consider all the
do.
options, but
Right.
for the short
Yeah.
term,
Right.
get a new speed bump and put it in, and let's figure out how to solve this a little bit more
Yeah.
permanently going forward.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very frustrating. Yes, Tasia Singh.
Chief Randall, did you have an opportunity yet to do an investigation?
Well, I mean, what's the investigation going to consist of? We saw that they sawed it off or something, needed to let go.
I'm thinking like asking around
Well,
to
this
see
is
if
what
anybody's
I
signed.
did, is I went to Barry Gau's office today, because I know they have cameras over there. So I asked them to check to see if they have anything on their camera system, okay?
Yeah.
That's what I've done so far. I asked anybody there if they heard anything. We don't really know exactly what time it happened, whether it was 3 o'clock in the morning, or was it at 6:30 when people were coming down to go to work, or were they going up the hill? You know, in your own mind, you develop thought process of who a likely suspect might be. But I'm not gonna throw any names out.
No,
right?
nor
But
should
we have in our own mind who we think it might be, okay? But, we don't have any real hard evidence. And
Yeah.
it's tough, we gotta try to collect some evidence, but there's no evidence really there.
Right.
There isn't anything. I mean, some crimes are very difficult to solve. And this is this one right now is gonna be, you
Yeah.
know, like I said, cameras is the key, but.
Yes, Tim?
We have, the board in the past has voted to change the speed limit on a road.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to throw that out there.
No, I think it's a good
You might want
idea.
to get a motion, take a vote to post that section.
Yeah.
What are you recommending, Chief? 15
I would
for
say
that
15,
section?
you know, the school, if you drive School Street, you see
Yeah.
in the mornings
Yeah.
for certain times.
Yeah.
It's posted at 15 miles an hour.
Yeah, and, okay.
And I think whether the Parks and Rec program's in place or not, people
Mhm.
still go over that beach to use it.
I know.
And there could be people going in and out.
Okay,
So I think a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit there from, you know, once you turn on Levitt Hill Road until you get up to the next house, the Brown House.
yep.
Would be a reasonable section to be at 15 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Would anyone like to make that motion?
I'll
I
make
would-
that motion. Oh,
Okay.
I'll
Well,
second it.
Okay. Well, my motion would be to post Levitt Hill Road at 15 miles an hour from sun up to sundown for the hours of duration of beach. So to protect the public and all people who use that beach from speeding.
Why make it,
Yeah,
why
Those are the
restrict it?
app-
I
Why not the
understand
whole-
that, but it's
Yeah, so
just
now-
as easy
Now what's
to.
gonna happen
yeah.
as well, it was 5:35.
I
The
know.
sunset was really
I know.
5:30.
You gotta do it the
Yeah.
whole,
You really can't let it get into that.
You know, I appreciate your
Got the whole
concerns, but I
thing.
think, you know, to make it less complicated,
time.
you just
Okay.
put this, like Tony said, they're gonna ignore it anyway,
15.
but
Simple.
whatever.
Okay.
Simple.
Yeah.
Can I redact that?
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to change the speed limit on Levitt Hill to 15 miles an hour.
And it's
Well,
been
second
seconded,
that.
discussion?
Yes.
Yes, I think we need to make sure to state that it's going to be posted on both sides of the
Yes.
road.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, for that section, not
Yeah.
the whole thing.
No.
yeah, we know.
Because then you'll really make people
Oh,
upset
yeah.
if it's
Yeah.
15 miles an hour.
All the way to the top, yes,
Yeah.
yes, we don't want that.
Right.
Okay, any further discussion?
So can we just make sure that the motion is amended to reflect those statements?
Both
Yes,
sides?
both
Yeah.
sides.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So you have signs, I assume, Tim, or you can get them?
I'll have to order those,
Okay.
the 15s, but I can
Okay,
get those fairly
okay,
quick.
great.
Madam Chair,
Thank you, yes.
One other comment for that, I'm sorry.
Nope.
Oh, go ahead, and then I'll,
Well, only thing I want to mention is in the past, we discussed security bolts there.
Mhm.
And looking at the picture that was provided, perhaps if we're going to go through the work to install security bolts, that we drill some extra holes in those speed bumps. So if
Like
they
at the
won't-
end, so
No,
that-
like every foot.
yeah.
Okay, we're going to make them work for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you right now, the security bolt wouldn't have made a difference, because they took a saw to it.
Well,
Yeah,
they took
well,
a saw to the
But if
speed
there was
bump.
one at
That's
the
what he's
end,
saying.
then
Yeah,
that
you
section
pull it
wouldn't have been
every
able,
foot, and they
wouldn't have
can't
been quite so
cut
easy.
it.
I don't think they're going to be that.
They
Anyway.
strategically cut it so when they drove over it, they could straddle it.
Was it,
Right.
were there two cuts, or just,
There
it
was
was
just
just
the one.
straddle, okay.
One.
So they
Figure it
measured their
out.
wheelbase.
Try to
and
make
then
it a
they-
little tougher for them, whatever you do, okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So I'd like, just so that it's gone through a motion, I'd like to make a motion that we replace that speed bump, and that we put the, what is it, the tamper-proof bolts?
Yes.
And let's do it, let's put, you know, allow the DPW director to determine what the, you know, the best amount of bolts are. But
How difficult is it to get those bolts, Tim?
I don't know if we can get security bolts in that size. I mean, those are 3/4 bolts.
And in that amount of time?
Yeah,
No.
I mean, I can go
I'd
on to
suggest
Fast- I go
Fastenal.
on Fastenal or one of those websites
Yeah.
tomorrow and look.
Okay, so, you know, your motion is fine, but pending availability, how's that?
Right,
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, if they have them, I can get them in a couple
Okay,
days.
great.
Yeah.
Right.
So you know what we want, I'm sure you can do it. All those in favor of the motion, we
I'll
already said that,
second it.
okay. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on. Are you done now, Tony, Charlie?
No, I talked to a member of the trustees today.
Yes.
We, on a serious matter, we still have a pending legal matter that's faced us between the electric department and the trustees. We have a bill from Westcott Law that is past due. Wondering if the board wants to go ahead and pay it.
Do we have any kind of verdict at this point, or any kind of indication when it's coming
No,
through?
that's what was my conversation when I asked, because I don't really have any other way of knowing, and we don't.
I think
We
that's
should
a
have to
thin
pay it.
line for us if we
I
pay
don't think
one.
we should have to pay it.
No.
I agree with that, but
And I'll just say again, I recommend that we do pay it.
Do you have a number to throw out for the opposing parties' expenditures so far, which we haven't bills submitted?
Well, we did receive the electric department's financials, and it's, I guess their legal line said it was over 70,000.
Yeah,
72.5?
yeah, something
That's a
like
lot
that.
more than what Westcott's asking for. So, you pay one, you're gonna get asked to pay the other.
I really feel like we are stuck between a rock and a hard place, and I just don't know which way to go. The whole thing infuriates me, but that's just my opinion. I could be wrong.
Yep.
I hear that.
I know, I know.
One of the things that was said to me was they weren't the ones that
I
brought the
don't
case
care what
forward.
any of them said.
So,
It's a lawsuit that probably should have never happened,
Yeah.
and we got caught in the middle.
In the crossfire.
That's not the determination to be
I
made.
understand that. It is not the determination, but it is hurting the town, and we are responsible for the town's finances, and this is hurting the town, and I just... Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we pay the amount that's due on the
$4,736.02.
Yes, that we pay that amount to Westcott Law.
Is there a second? Hearing no second, the motion fails. We will consider it again at some future date, and hopefully we will hear something, some resolution.
Then we're supposed to have a decision on that June 1st.
It's up to the judge. Okay, my project list.
I have a question for department head.
Go ahead.
Parks and Rec, last week we spoke about, having the Parks and Rec department head look at options for the road, railings and guardrails and such. I was just wondering if there's any further information about that.
No.
Okay, is there an anticipated date by which you'll have some more information?
Well, what I am looking for, what I think is the best, is to have a rail, like a guardrail type thing, go across the whole thing. But in order to do that, we have to get permission because of the 33-foot.
Yeah.
We have to let off the
It
center
has to be
line.
DOT authorized.
Right,
Yeah.
so I have to wait to see when they're going to give me a decision.
So have you put in that question? to
Yes.
them? Okay, all right, thank you.
I don't have an answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right,
Project list.
project list. All right, so I had my scope of the work meeting with NHDOT for our TAP grant, the sidewalks. They approved our RFQ. The RFQ went out, it was actually advertised in today's Union Leader. It's advertised out on NHMA's website. Some engineer firms have contacted me directly for the RFQ, so.
What is the deadline for response?
The 18th.
Okay.
Thompson Street project, I
Yeah.
submitted our potential application for funding. It's pretty much out of our hands. If it's got to get approved, and then the subset A, they have to approve us.
Right.
Select us, so that's to be determined, and whether or not it goes through, it's a long ways away.
Mr. Smith?
Yeah.
I have a question about that. So going back to the discussion of requesting a meeting with the budget committee and how that pertains to Smith Hill, has that been followed up on? Because I remember at the last
Yeah.
meeting.
I talked to the chairman, and the chairman was supposed to, I guess, talk to the rest of the budget committee, but was also sort of confused as to why we might want to meet, because we are far gone in this fiscal year. The project won't be worked on
I think
this
it's
year.
for future
but-
reference, because we
Yeah.
could run into this again next year. If this
Right.
goes back to a warrant article
Yeah.
and it gets turned down again, we need to know
Yeah.
what our options are, because
Mm-hmm.
the need is not going to go away. So I think the only reason for that discussion was to kind of figure out where they stand and, what they might
Mm-hmm.
allow, or, what we might be able to do to
Yeah.
help the problem.
No.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we can do is we rewrite the article
Mm-hmm.
that says, if this article fails,
Yes,
basically let us use capital reserve funds.
Yeah.
And let the people tell us.
yeah.
So do we have a consensus, Madam Chair, that is, because it sounds like, what I'm hearing from you, Mr. Smith, is that there's vaguity for the budget committee, that the chair does not understand the purpose of said meeting. So it sounds like it would be helpful to have a very clear determination from the board so that you can go pass that on. Is that correct? So
Does anybody have a different perception from what we had agreed than I stated? So,
Do you still want to meet with the budget committee to discuss that?
I think it wouldn't hurt.
Okay.
I think it'll ensure transparency for them. and we don't have
Exactly,
any
that's
other
the main
issues.
reason, transparency. You know, they need to understand our issues and we need to understand theirs.
Alrighty, noted.
Okay?
Any other questions before I move forward?
Nope.
All right, we received our Primex report from our joint meeting. I guess we'll revisit that as they go through the rest of the fiscal year.
Okay.
I duly noted that brownfields is properly spelled in my description.
Thank you,
In case you
Charlie.
guys follow along. There's no S after Browns, it's Brownfields. With that being said, Novus was approved with their scope of work from NHDES. So they, another quick note that I noticed from that proposal was DES wants that report by Novus, from Novus to DES by October 31st.
Oh, that's soon.
Good.
I'm sorry.
Go right ahead.
So I just wanted to let you know that, I mean, I'm not the liaison to that committee, but I went to a meeting and I overheard that there was some discussion of potentially moving towards a nonprofit. So I was wondering, is there any information on how that would impact us? Is there any-
First of all, it's just a discussion. It's a long ways from fait accompli. It really doesn't relate to this issue. And I can talk more about that when I have more information.
Yeah, I
It's
don't
just
know
something
which
that
one.
we've discussed. It would have no effect on any of this. None.
Yeah, this project honestly really doesn't affect us too much at all.
No, it doesn't cost
Because the town
us
doesn't own
anything.
the you know,
Right.
we're just
Right.
sort of
Right.
like invited to the party, I guess you could say. You know, LRPC did approve the hazardous materials survey, so that project's on its way.
Yeah, that's really good news.
Town hall, but in relations to your economic development question, this project is the first step for that.
Right. For anything that's
Any
done.
economic development, you have to get a site assessment to see if there's any contamination.
Right.
This report, if it determines that, would go ahead and clean it up before you move forward towards revitalizing that area. So that's why, I guess you could say this is, involved with us.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. It is cornerstone for moving forward.
On
Go ahead.
your fourth bullet point, you left a Brownsfield.
You're kidding.
Oh,
I
I'm
don't
upset
kid.
that I didn't find it,
I
Harold,
don't
and you did.
kid.
One. Did I?
Yes, sir.
Jeez.
Sorry.
Yep. You took away my fun, Harold. I'm not happy.
Next time.
Yeah, okay.
Go right ahead.
Before you go on to the next, when you're done with this section, let me know. I wanted to go back one section.
Oh, go right ahead, go back.
Okay. I just wanted to hop back to the Primex report, and
Sure.
I just briefly I won't go into details, but I just wanted to briefly express that I have some reservations around the final conclusion. I thought the meeting was very great to work with others and discuss things, but I have some reservations about the final conclusions that were kind of come up with as an action plan. If at some future point, when those come up as individual points, I'll express them. But I just
Okay.
want to, voice that I have a concern about that.
Mango Securities received the contract for the fire alarm system. They're going to order the parts in, I think they said maybe about a month before they get going on that. So.
Oh, Mr. Smith? Yeah.
Sure.
So, when I was looking at that, and then I was cross-referencing it with the proposed budget for next year, your initial draft of the budget, I saw that there was mention of a second installment for an alarm, and I'm assuming that it was that fire alarm system. Is that true or no? Because I thought in here it said 18,000 for second
We talked about this being
Yeah.
the first
Yeah,
phase
this
of
is
a
only-
project that
yeah.
would inevitably cost
Yeah.
more. And we didn't want to
Yeah.
spend it all in 1 year. I think
Yeah.
that was
Right.
the,
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, this is on the first
That was
floor.
it.
Yeah.
yeah, there, it's page 1 of government building and cemetery,
Yeah.
line 611,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, because you gotta, this is only for phase 1, floor 1, I guess you could say.
yeah.
So the Norm DeWolf Day and volunteer recognition, I think Fran's gonna speak to that
Yep.
later.
I met with Kathleen DeWolf and Katie Marr and Susan McLeod. We did order a memorial stone to be put into the garden in front of the town hall. I personally paid for it, and I'm hoping we can get some donations from people to kind of offset my cost. It was $249, but it will be a granite marker, and it'll have his name, his birth year and death year, and then the service as a selectman, the dates of his service as selectman, and we will probably be getting that within the next week or so. It'll come to the town hall, Charlie, with my name on it.
Okay.
So we will be putting out information, public relations information, to solicit donations from the community for that and for garden supplies as well. Norm was particularly fond of the coreopsis, for example, and we have a lot more plans for that whole garden space as well as the space closer to the road, and all that will be done with donation money. I would like to know if it's possible for the Board of Selectmen from the town budget to also make a contribution to that. I know it's been done in the past. We had memorial benches out there that were paid for by the selectmen, but I don't know what it would come from or if it's appropriate, but I'd like to find out the possibilities of that. As to the plans for the day, they're still the same. We're meeting again next week to come up with a task list. And I do want to meet with Tim, just so I can pick his brain about any supplies that we have. And it'll depend on the number of volunteers that show up. The Heritage Commission is taking it under their wing ultimately, and they are supplying the food. There'll be cider and donuts or apples or whatever. They will be paying for all of that. So more details will come out, and look for the PR that will hopefully come out, as well as an article for the paper. Again, September 11th, rain date, September 12th.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I think when we were looking over the minutes from our last meeting, there was some concern about where that $500 was going to come from. Did you want to speak to that?
Oh, yeah. I guess we had voted that it come from capital reserve. It's not likely we're going to spend 500. I think our motion was to up to, but Charlie would prefer to see that come out of our operating budget, so we don't have to put in a request to the trustees for the capital reserve money for whatever it is, if it ends up being 100. So I'm perfectly happy if you're comfortable with taking it out of our building maintenance fund.
Yeah, because it's gonna be used for the building.
It's gonna be used for the
And
building,
we don't know how much it
certainly.
is, and to
Right.
go back and forth to the trustees who only meet every couple months and request them to meet over maybe $50.
Yeah, yeah,
Not necessary.
right. So is there a motion to amend that to take the money from the building maintenance fund budget item?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Now, can we briefly discuss whether or not it's appropriate for the town, i.e. the Board of Selectmen, from the town budget to make a donation to the plaque or the garden supplies?
I'm not sure where would it come out of the budget for that type of appropriation. I mean, the board, I guess, has a general expenses line.
What's in it?
It's just executive general expenses.
How much is in it?
Oh, how much is it?
Yeah.
Sorry. I think about, well, this is as of June. This is 750 was appropriated, 332 was spent. So maybe about $400,
Yeah.
assuming it hasn't been used.
$423.
Yeah, that's pretty much a board line.
So what do you want us to do, like half of it
I
and then
think,
raise the
I
other
think
half,
you should
or-
make whatever motion seems appropriate. I'm not going to make the motion because part of it will reimburse me. I mean, I'm more than happy to contribute a good sum to that fund, but I think it would say something that the town
Yes.
was contributing to it. It's more than that, than reimbursing me. I think we should make a statement that we support this effort. So,
I'll make a motion that we pay the whole $249 from the Board of coming from the Board of Selectmen.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion?
Yes.
Yes?
So I've already received some concern from public about even the $500 that we're setting aside to spend. So, and the concern that I've heard, which I think is a legitimate concern, is that the idea here is to, celebrate our volunteers and also the spirit of donating also to the town. And so it doesn't, and that volunteering and donating is, in part, can be used to offset costs for the town that would otherwise be spread among the entire town. So it seems kind of potentially in contrast to the intention of the day.
Well, the volunteers are going to do the physical labor. The money is to be spent on supplies, because I don't think we're going to ask people to supply rubber gloves or brooms or whatever, which is one of the reasons I need to talk to Tim to find out what we have on hand.
Right.
We're not asking for people to contribute their own supplies. This is just stuff that would be part of routine maintenance for the building, which is
Right.
why it should come out of the budget.
I guess, as an example for the volunteering, if this would shed some light for you, my wife's business, and we worked with Norman to get some of the banners done in town. My wife has come forward and she's going to donate a banner, one of the American flag banners, with Norman's name on it, and that is also, it's a kind of like an in-kind service, that's the feelings that we're trying to get people to bring forward.
Right.
And whatever you can to bring forward, whether you're a lay person and it's labor, or you're a professional and it's a service, it's just that community pride, and that's what we're looking for.
Absolutely, and thanks to you and your wife for doing that. I think it's great. But nevertheless, building maintenance is something that we should be doing anyway.
Right.
The town hall does not look good on the outside, and we've got a 150th anniversary celebration coming up, and it's kind of sad, and I'm going to talk more about that later. It's kind of pathetic the way that town hall looks. It's been benign neglect, and so what we want to do is get that spirit of volunteer work and roll their sleeves up and get in there and make it look better, but there might be some supplies, so I don't see any contradiction personally in spending the money from the town as well as getting the labor donated from the volunteers. Yes?
Madam Chair, however, the discussion right now, the motion on the table is not about that $500.
Right.
No, it is not, but you
Right.
just brought
But
that up.
rather, it's about reimbursing the $240. And the reason why I
Right.
mentioned that is that what I'm saying is, I supported the $500 expenditure,
Okay.
but with public expression of concern around just the $500 for the items that seem understandably necessary, I think it's a little bit of a stretch to then go say, let's put another $249 aside for, reimbursing the plaque.
Well, it's not
right?
about reimbursing, it's paying for the plaque. I just
It's
happen to
us
use my
paying
credit
for
card.
it.
It's us as a town paying for it. And
It's a
and
statement.
because a
It's a
person or
statement.
a few people express concern, we don't run this town based on a people's opinion. We base it on what is the best thing that we as elected officials think is the right thing to do. And
Right.
so, I can't react to rumors that I've heard that somebody might be upset. Somebody's always upset about something.
Yeah.
That's life. So, yes.
Madam Chair, but it's not a rumor. That sounds like what you did was you went ahead and bought something, and now you're asking for the approval of
No,
that
you are
purchase.
incorrect. I bought
Okay.
something, and we had hoped to get donations from the town. I didn't buy it with the assumption the town would pay me back. In fact, I think what
Okay.
Lee proposed is a very generous offer. As I said, I am more than willing and would have been very happy to contribute a good part of that sum, if not all of it. But I knew that people like me who care about Norm would come up to the plate.
Yes.
And so part of the public relations is to ask for donations, and we still will, because there are more garden supplies that we need to buy.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for reimbursement. I'm looking for the town to make a statement.
Yes, I
A
agree.
completely different thing.
I agree. Move the question.
Okay, I'll move the question. Anything else?
You gotta vote.
You gotta ask for a vote.
Is there a vote to move the question? Is there a second?
Yes,
I'll second that. I did second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of moving the question, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Moving on, Charlie.
Okay, town telecommunications, we approved the first light to install fiber optic cable at our last meeting. I had a walkthrough with them last Tuesday, and they expect within the next 3 weeks to get going on installing that into the town office.
Wow, how long will it take? I mean, is it quick once they start?
I don't think, they only have to go, I think he said 3 poles.
And then how
Wow.
long to hook everything up in the town?
I don't
You
think
don't
maybe
know.
a day or two. I
But
don't think
it's soon.
CCS
That's
Yeah,
very exciting.
yeah.
Thank you,
And this will be
Charlie.
both sides of the building?
Nice.
Yep.
That's very
Mr.
exciting.
Smith, going back to the Lake Regions Planning Commission, sorry to jump around, but
Sure.
I did see here bullet point number 3, it says the DPW director contacted LRPC about paving plan. Is that paving plan, does that have to do with the $7,500 that we
Yeah.
put towards?
Yep.
Okay,
Same thing.
it's the same thing?
Yeah,
Yep.
All right.
that was months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
just
a couple
making
months
sure,
ago.
I did, thank you.
Sure. No updates on Whipple House. No updates on. I will jump to the town office building because you were talking about the town office. And I added the phase 1 to that because it kind of relates to the town office building.
Yep.
But secondly, I had a couple walkthroughs with 2 companies that prepare historic windows in old buildings, and feedback's not that good. One company has walked away from the project. It's too much, and another doesn't think he can do it because he's a one-man crew. During my conversations with a couple of them, our initial thought was, oh, hey, we want to open the windows. Well, they were telling me the fact that these windows are so kind of buttoned up for the winter, it's actually deteriorating the windows because moisture gets trapped.
Condensation.
Yeah,
Oh.
condensation.
Yeah.
Moisture gets stuck in there. There's no air, and it's just not good for those windows.
No, it's not.
I don't know where this is gonna go. I didn't expect this literally happened within the week that, we had a walkthrough and they just said,
Yeah, it's a
no.
shame.
One of them is open to the fact that maybe we could, if we could get them down to Portsmouth, he could maybe work on them. I'm waiting to hear from him his proposal,
Okay.
so,
All right, keep us posted.
yep,
Well,
yep. So, other than that, I got another thing. You want me to continue on?
Sure. You got the chair.
if you have to.
Okay, yeah. We have a contract renewal from Certified Computer Solutions. They are our IT support, all IT support for the town, for staff. We purchase any new hardware, they install it, they handle our computers if we have issues and stuff. Previously, the town was on a year-to-year contract. This time, our contract has actually lapsed. And during our annual meeting last week, they requested a new contract. This one's for 3 years. It's for $7,605 annually. That
What
is
has it been?
about $7,300.
Okay, so it's a little bit of an increase. Okay.
Yeah. And this is for all their services, like the maintenance that I just talked about, and setup, et cetera. It's for our cloud. They have a full list of all-inclusive services at the back of your packet. And I'm open to any questions.
Have you looked at any other service providers, Charlie? I
No.
mean, I know there've been concerns expressed about CCS. I don't know how valid they are, and I have no opinion one way or the other, but, locking into a 3-year contract, if there are any concerns, is a little bit concerning. I think I might like to open this up to the public because I know we have a couple people here who know a whole lot more about our computer system than I do. Eli, you have anything you'd like to say? I know, I hate to put you on the spot, but you've been very involved in this, as has Mardine.
The concerns that have been brought up before. One of the concerns was whether CCS would do hosting, provide an email server, that sort of thing. The concerns were not necessarily with the quality of their work.
Okay.
There are other companies out there who do similar work. I don't know how much they cost. And I don't know what's on the back of your page of the list of services. To even give you a guess evaluation of them. I do remember when CCS first started in this town, and they have kept the town going since around 2003.
Oh, it's been that long, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It used to be done by a company out of Laconia, and
Mainstay?
no, it was one of the office places. They used to have on Union Avenue. They've always seemed to do good work. They've always seemed to be there within the 8 hours or
Yeah.
so that you've called them. Depends on,
Again, that's why I'm asking for input, because, I mean, my biggest pet peeve, as everybody knows, is the email system. And it would be nice to have a calendaring system, but I don't, and
Email
they
is not
haven't been
them.
able to, give us any
Email
good
is not
options.
them.
No, that
Yeah, I know,
Email
it's
is-
Notchnet, but,
your email server is located through Notchnet.
right.
Right.
Yeah.
It has always been located through Notchnet, well,
Yeah.
for quite a while. That's a different conversation.
Sure.
Okay. I just want to be sure.
Your cloud server,
That's CCS.
you can buy a cloud server and do the IT work yourself for the cloud server, unless something goes wrong.
That's my
Yeah,
concern.
yeah. Yeah, no, thank you.
Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They charge you for their time. Their
Right.
time is expensive.
about $150 an hour.
Everybody out there who does computer work, such as they do, is expensive. You have to get somebody up from Manchester or from Concord. The prices are, even if you go to Staples, it's $125 an hour. So,
Their cost here, they charge us 120 an hour only if we install stuff,
okay.
new stuff.
Okay.
If there's a problem with our computers, they don't
Yeah.
charge us for that. The installation with the new fiber optic, they told me they're not going to charge us.
Okay,
I am comfortable with the service too.
Okay.
Maybe Tony, and
yeah, Tony
Yeah,
just
I
handed.
wanted to weigh in a little.
Okay,
Go right
please
ahead.
do.
I'm happy with the service that they
Okay.
provide to us. They're very responsive
Yeah.
to us
Okay.
when
I
we
agree with that.
talk to them.
Okay.
Not that I always agree with
Yeah.
the outcome,
Right.
but they're always accommodating. They're
Okay.
always
Yeah.
there to help us when we need help.
Okay,
They've been the computer people since I've been there at the PD.
okay,
They understand the software that we have
yeah,
in our computer system. We went through the whole thing about being in the cloud and all that, and they brought the server back to our PD so that we could get the speed that we needed.
right,
for-
right,
Guys were typing,
right.
and it was like 2 seconds behind,
Right.
and it was all because of the cloud.
Yeah,
and the-
yeah,
the
yeah.
service, and they treated us more than fairly to bring that back
Okay.
to the PD
Okay.
and make it right for us.
Okay,
Would you?
I have no issues with that.
all right, well, that's the kind of input I wanted, because I,
Yeah.
just want to make sure that we're going into this with our eyes wide open.
Would you feel comfortable changing it to 1 year?
Is the price the same?
I'd have to get back to you on that.
Yeah, it's up to the board to discuss.
I feel better.
You would-
Sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple concerns. One of them is the same that you mentioned at the beginning. I'd like to see some competing offers, some alternatives, just to weigh the options. And also, another concern that I had was a 3-year contract. I have concerns about the 3 multi-year contracts.
if you could come back to us, Charlie, just ask them what it would cost for 1 year, and I know we're overdue, but we should table this decision until our next meeting. Yes, Eli?
the Board of Selectmen has looked at getting other people. I'm not suggesting that you don't go
Yeah,
looking,
yeah,
but every time you've gone and looked at competing,
Yeah.
It's going to be.
we have, you're
very,
absolutely
This
right.
is
We
this
have.
is pretty low.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think you'd get this low.
Yeah.
I think
with
before we
another
put
company, to be
much
honest with you.
thought into it, we should ponder the fact that it's only a 3.5% increase if you
Yeah.
take the
Yeah.
$305.
Yeah.
Now, historically, having someone who's in the computer industry and computer business, we look at about an 8 to 10% increase
Okay.
yearly for services. So
Okay.
that 3.3 is really good.
Okay.
Yeah, I was
well,
surprised. It was
yeah.
a little low
I would
for
just
that
like
3
to add
years.
this if I could.
Yep, sure.
They know what's going on at that town
That's
hall.
true,
That's-
they do.
yeah.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
somebody else, if they went up above those ceiling tiles, because nobody ever took a wire out, they just kept putting more in.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
they know what's going on
Yeah,
with the
no,
wire.
there's a lot to be said for that,
Okay?
yep.
And how much is it gonna cost the town for somebody, we're gonna pay for somebody to get up on board with everything that's going on at the town.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, you have an old building with a bunch of wires running around through it.
Yeah.
Everybody's gonna be going this, well, we're gonna have to do this testing and this testing. and
Yeah,
this
yeah,
testing
yeah.
to figure
No,
it all out.
good point.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
yes.
One more thing. One of the reasons that I'd like to see competing offers is, now, I don't know, I haven't been,
Yeah.
this is my first time encountering them, so I don't really know what their quality of work is. I'm hearing it from others, but I did look at their website, and a website can indicate some level of customer service, and unfortunately what I noticed, and perhaps it was just, I don't know, some kind of glitch, but on all of their pages, their website pages, the portion, this is a screenshot that I took, the left 1/8 margin of the page is missing, so that actually the words are cut off. And that's throughout, that's every page on their website. Now, of course, their website is not necessarily indicative of their work, but it seems to me potentially indicative of their customer service, which concerns me.
I say we table it until we find
Yeah,
out
I'll
what
find
the
out.
just
year,
get some information
what
on
the
the
year
cost, yeah, yeah,
cost would
definitely.
be.
And if there's any savings to us to do a 3-year contract as well.
Yes.
That'd be
Okay.
good to know. Okay.
Yes.
Anything else on CCS, Charlie?
Yes.
What?
We have an installation of a network equipment proposal from them.
Okay,
This, I think, I don't mean to jump, but Selectman Civilingham has a department head agenda policy that might,
can we table that for that section of the agenda, please?
my proposal sort of coincides with his suggestions, because I have a form that I created.
Oh, okay, go ahead. All right, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go for it.
We'll pass it along. Is that 5?
No, it's only 4, that's fine.
Oh, there you go. So we received a proposal from CCS because police departments had problems with their telephones lately. Turns out they had problems with the software and the router. We've been talking about this for months. The broadband is not fast enough, and their
Right.
problem was that the internet was being used in 2 separate things. And what I mean by that is it was being used for the computers
And
and,
the
also the
phone.
phone. They got a
Yeah,
phone
yep.
call, the broadband, there's not enough there. It was being sucked from the phone and the computers at the same time. So phone calls would drop that for 2 minutes. Their proposal is largely to install what is in the town office. It's this networking hardware
Yep.
that properly routes all their phones, because they don't have that right now. The thought was, once we come in with fiber optic cable, we'll install this hardware pretty much at the same time.
Okay.
Because the fiber optic is going to be used for the phones. Let's do it right. My thought was do it right the first time.
Absolutely.
And get it done the first way.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, I created a form because I noticed we've been going back and forth with the recommendations and motions, et cetera, et cetera. My form created, it says to the Board of Selectmen, or Board of Selectmen agenda report, to Board of Selectmen from any department head, the subject, and we literally write out the recommended motion for the selectmen.
Okay.
This way, we can have it in the minutes, we don't have to go back to correct the minutes, it's there. The discussion is there for facts and information, and I also included a fiscal impact. Any line item this might hit or impact on, et cetera, et cetera. This might be helpful in providing you more information that you would like to receive prior hand. Some departments are already using something similar to this, but I thought I would use the example of CCS in their proposal as an example to talk about department head agenda policy.
Okay. So
So with that being said, I do
the
need a
form
motion.
aside, we still need a
Yeah,
motion
still need a
for this
motion.
issue. Okay.
Yeah.
Would anybody care to make a motion to the general effect?
So it's for $2,021.83. It's to install network and equipment for the town office building, police department side, to handle their phone problem.
Yep.
Well, now, will this improve the scenario we had a few weeks ago with the phones being out and the computers being out? Is
It's
that
supposed
Yes,
to.
directly
it's
related
supposed
to
to.
this?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what it's addressing,
Okay.
yeah.
Yep.
I make a motion to approve the proposal from Certified Computer Solutions for the installation of split data telephone networks and for networking equipment for the town office building, police department side.
Nicely stated.
Just off the top of my head.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Yes?
Yeah, so this doesn't, so now that the contract is over, Mr. Smith, the former contract, this doesn't tie into the previous contract.
No, a
No,
lot of
this is
this.
for something we've
Yeah,
already
this
agreed
this
to.
proposal's in your packet. I mean, half of this is labor.
And
110 an hour.
I mean, they're already doing the fiber optic cable,
Yeah,
so this
they
is
think it's
just
gonna cost
to
2
finish
days.
the job.
Doing it at
Yeah,
the same time.
and this
Yeah.
picks it, like, in the office, I mean, right now, the thing's on the floor, basically, Tony. I mean, but we want to get it off the floor, we want to get it out of the way.
No,
It's not quite on the floor,
No,
but this makes it,
It's not, it's on the sergeant's, it's in the sergeant's office.
Yeah.
Okay? And it's not really, it's just sitting on top of some old,
Yeah.
looks like.
the old desk
type
or
of desk
something,
thing.
yeah.
And it really shouldn't be like that. It
Yeah.
needs to be like the one in the town office where it's up on a bracket,
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
to the wall, so
Yeah.
it's
Right.
neat and orderly, and when they come to work on it or service it, it's right there for them, not this bend over,
Yeah.
you know, push around some of the sergeant's stuff to
Yeah.
get to it. You know, this way it'll be in its own little corner, and they can get in there and work on it when they need to. It needs some organization, and it needs to get taken, because it could easily get knocked off that
Yeah.
desk.
Yeah.
It needs to become a fixture.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And that's supposed to, this is supposed to take care of all that, plus get our phone so when you're talking to somebody, you don't cut out in 2 minutes and then you gotta call them back again.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
It was awful.
Mr. Smith,
Yeah.
have you looked for alternatives, competing offers?
No, no. We've had the running relationship with CCS since 2003.
This
It's
is
way
part of-
under the required proposal amount, I think.
Right.
I guess I'll go back to, they know where all the wires are running, how it works,
Yeah.
and are you gonna bring somebody else in to try to figure out what's
Just
going on with the
move
stuff?
some wires,
I
yeah.
think it ends up costing you more money in the long run.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out why we're not using people that we normally use, and everything has to be, did you get an alternative price? And I understand the physical conservative of it all and trying to get the best price for the town,
Yeah.
but sometimes when you do that, you may have got a better price, but you're not getting the same
Yeah.
service.
Right.
You know, there are certain vendors that we
That's
do
right.
it all the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
They know us, we know them, we know they're giving us a good
Yep.
price.
Right.
Okay?
Yep, and that's why I asked for all that input, and I.
Yeah, and the guy that we use with,
No, you did
you know, we
well.
work with, his name's Frank a lot, they send Frank a lot. And he was there at that walkthrough that I had with First Light, and I'm glad he was there, because he
Yeah.
knew the whole building and he knew our entire setup.
Yeah.
He knows what's going, he knows what's going on. Frank
Yeah.
always comes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I think we're getting back into that other discussion, and the discussion at hand is this particular
Yeah.
proposal that we have a motion and a second for. So,
Madam Chair.
given this $2,021.83, we have we're looking for discussion on this proposal. Yes.
Sure, one more comment I had. The reason why I asked about that is
Sure.
it seems to me that it could have been a good, like, dry run to use this particular issue to look around, you know, to shop around. That's why I asked. Because there's obviously the larger, you know, discussion around the potential
Right.
contract, so.
Yeah.
Okay, all those
I hear
in
you.
favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Nay.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Wendy?
So who did, Harold made the motion?
Harold made the motion, Lee
And
seconded it.
What line is it coming out of?
Out of
buildings.
general government building. See,
Buildings.
this nice form that Charlie created, it's all right here.
No, you did the specific to
Yeah. Anything else on CCS?
No.
Okay, so we still have one other item on the new business that we skipped over, and that is, again, getting back to the town hall, which is in pathetic shape. We
sorry.
noticed on a walk-around that among all of its other problems, windows and whatnot, the soffits are in terrible, terrible condition. I don't think they've been painted in, Patsy said, at least 35 years. There's some rotting wood that's probably lead paint. And the problem with them rotting is that now we're getting leakage, and you can see that the bricks are cracking, you know, and it needs to be taken care of. And all I'm asking is that we can have a motion to seek bids, proposals, to fix the soffits. This isn't something any volunteer can do or DPW, it needs a professional.
Right.
We need an assessment and what it's gonna cost. And then we can decide if it's something that we have the money to invest in right now. But, you know, this is our town hall, it's a historic building, and we
Right.
just can't let it rot. So I would like a motion to at least approve of going out with an RFP to get some contractors in there to assess the situation.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that for discussion.
Any further discussion?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I didn't receive, other than the line item there under new business, I didn't receive any documentation or explanation.
There is no documentation.
I mean, it sounds like there must be some information.
The information
description.
is on observation by the volunteer committee. I'm just bringing it to your attention. I didn't take pictures, I didn't write down the number of square feet. It's just that the soffits are rotting, and we need somebody to tell us what
Well,
the problem is.
The person will tell us.
But yeah, that's it. It's just to get a proposal to find out what work needs to be done.
I
It
think,
is
Right.
not costing us anything to get a proposal.
I think
Right.
it'd be advantageous to have it evaluated merely for the fact that the northern wall, the northern brick wall of that building, the soffit is already starting to deviate all the mortar around the bricks.
It's
Soffits
bad.
are
Yeah.
a lot cheaper than brickwork.
Yeah.
A lot
And as I said, it
cheaper.
has not been
Right.
looked at in many, many years. So-
Right.
Well, Madam Chair?
Yes.
The reason I mention that is because one of the items that I'd like to consider is the possibility of if volunteers, professional volunteers or otherwise, could participate in doing this rather than us putting out more money. So that's one of the
I
reasons.
don't think that the insurance company is going to let us have any volunteers climbing up on tall ladders and examining it. I want a registered professional who knows about wood and leaks and all that other stuff. I'm not,
Yes.
I wouldn't even go there. But
I'll
that's my
vote.
opinion. So,
Vote.
okay. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, thank you. Select board items. I think these are all yours, Teja Singer.
Not necessarily. I mean, the unsealing of the non-public minutes, the sealed minutes, that's a board item.
Well, we've discussed it in the past, but I believe you brought it to our attention that we have some minutes, and I don't think we came to any kind of conclusion about how it was going to be done.
I think Charlie has some
Charlie, do
recommendations.
you have anything?
We actually put this one on hold till Lee was back because
Okay.
Yeah,
she was
I recall
absent.
that.
All right.
Really, we had two options. In order to unseal them, we schedule a meeting, we list the non-public minutes we would like to discuss. If you wanted to, you open them. If you wanted to have further discussion, you go into non-public under that particular RSA. Or the board can assign this topic to an individual selectman who would open them and then come back to the board with recommendations on whether or not to release or remain sealed.
I recall this conversation we had. It was entailed Mr. Smith being an extra set of eyes.
Yes.
You and I had this conversation.
Yes.
But if we were going down the road of one select person, that the extra set of eyes should also be Mr. Smith. I recall that.
Yeah, absolutely, that was the discussion. And I know there were concerns about biases or, changing text. The fact is, you can't change text, minutes are minutes. It's
Right.
just a
Right.
question. The majority of us, Lee, you probably have more history than any of us, but looking at any of those minutes, I couldn't say one way or another whether they were accurately recorded. So it's just a question
Right.
of whether this is suitable to open. So I don't think there's any bias that can come into it.
I think it's more of a
there's-
housekeeping thing.
It is.
It
Yeah,
is.
there's certain things that obviously you're not going to open and certain things that are, so I don't
That
see
you
why
can get
it
rid of.
becomes a big deal to.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the things that I expressed at the last meeting is a concern about having a single select person review the minutes. I think that if we're going to have it delegated to a smaller, group, then I think it should be 2 selectmen and the town administrator. That's, that's my recommendation.
Fine.
I just don't want this to get bogged down in bureaucracy, but 2 is fine. I mean, you could do chair and the vice chair, just for example.
Yeah.
Just make a proposal, I don't care.
I'll
We
make
just
a
gotta-
motion that the chair and the vice chair then, along with the town administrator, review the sealed minutes and bring their recommendations of which minutes to potentially unseal to the Board of Selectmen.
Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion. I'd like to add an amendment to that motion.
Sure.
I think that this should also have, moving forward, a time frame for which they are reviewed in the future, so this does not become a
Yeah.
cumbersome task
Absolutely.
for future boards.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. And we can come up
Good
with that
idea.
policy at some point, but
Yep.
that's a
Yeah,
good
good
point.
idea.
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so Charlie, if you can, kind of set up a meeting, and Harold and I will figure out a way to get there.
Yep.
Okay, the next one is yours, Tasia Singer.
Yeah. Yeah, I spoke on this, last time at the last meeting, but basically I proposed a policy for maintaining order. We've had several instances where public comments have become impassioned and disorderly. And so the idea here is to put a policy in place so that there's a clear protocol on how to handle such situations again if they were to arise. I submitted the proposed policy. Now it's been, I think you've had several weeks to look at it, so it's really up to the board to discuss. And
Do you have a motion?
yes, my motion is to approve or to adopt the maintaining order policy as written.
Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, open for discussion.
I had a question.
Yes.
So, under stage 2, 2.3.2, says if the motion fails and further action may be pursued by the selectmen at large. What does that mean? If the motion fails and further action may be pursued? I feel like that shouldn't be an and.
Let me read it. 2.3.1, you said?
2.3.2.
Okay.
Is it if the motion fails, no further action may be
Right.
pursued? Or
Right, it was meant to be no. Yep,
should be no?
yes,
Okay.
it should read no. If the motion fails, then no further action may be pursued with regards to that specific perceived disorderly conduct. Yes, thank you for the revision. So did you, the rest of the selectmen catch that?
Yes.
Okay.
Could you just give us an overview on what it is what is the general purpose?
Yeah, the general purpose is to give a clear protocol and order, basically a method of, reestablishing order if there's a loss of order. And so it walks through, of course, it would first go to the chairperson, and then it talks about if the chairperson, reasons that the chairperson might not be able to do it, and in which case the vice chairperson would do it. In the case that neither the chairperson nor the vice chairperson respond, and that there's actually an order of, an order issue, that a selectman at large could then pursue remedy by requesting a vote of the remaining members of the board, or the board in its entirety, to make them the interim chair for the remainder of the board, so that order is established and then the rest of the meeting is carried out. That's
And
normal.
how is it now? How is that different?
Well, one of the things that I saw different was at the meeting 2 meetings ago, there was a member of the public that I felt, went into disorder, was essentially raising their voice at me. I felt like I asked for order, I mentioned point of order, meaning I was asking the chairperson to call order. There was no call of order. There was no call of order by the vice chair, because I think that my understanding is the vice chair lacked a protocol. There was a lack of protocol, a clear protocol.
My
Okay.
understanding of that situation was that it would have been advantageous for there to be a succession, for the example of no one wants to be in the position that if someone is being adversarial with them, that they are the person that has to tell someone to stand down. Because then you're talking about abuse of power. There needs to be There needs to be a protocol, there needs to be a way that we can have it on pen and paper. You know, I agree with some of this. There's some of it that honestly is above my head. But I do believe that we need to have a protocol for when those things get out of order. Because the last thing you want to do is to be acting in a manner that you think you're benefiting the town, and for someone to take it the wrong way and for there to be legal proceedings. That's my only fear, is that I wouldn't want to have to tell somebody to stand down if they're being unruly towards myself. That would be my only concern.
Without a written
Yes,
protocol in place.
yes.
So I'll amend my motion to reflect the revision that Mr. Barney mentioned under 2.3.2, but otherwise my motion is that this policy be adopted by the Board of Selectmen.
Can we like have this rewritten so that it's a more clear and briefer?
Well,
Go ahead, Casey.
okay, I had another concern where this call of the selectmen at large, where you move to order or whatever, you call for a vote.
Right.
And what happens if that person is not elected as the interim? You know what I'm saying? You need a
Then-
majority, so
right.
it's 1 to 2, and then no one has order still.
Then
I
it
feel
goes-
like it's just like a loop.
it goes down
but
to
it's not a
2
closed loop. You know what I'm saying?
Let me
like if we're gonna
answer that.
adopt it.
2.3.2, that's the thing that closes the loop, the thing that you caught before, that it doesn't continue. If there is no vote that passes, then it's done.
Right, but okay. It says that no further action can be pursued by the selectmen at large, but there's still no order.
Yeah.
Right, I mean.
Right, so I'm saying if we're going to adopt this, there should be a closed loop for everything, right?
Okay.
So there should be there needs to be like something to finish off that loop. I walked through it today because I had time, and that was the big thing.
I think that's a really great point, and I think it raises a big concern, and I think it speaks to the concern at the heart of the policy anyway. What do you do when order's not being called being established by the people that should be establishing order? Whether it's the chairperson or whether it's the, right, but who? See, the thing is the board has to act as a board. No single person, except for the chairperson, and in lieu of the chairperson, the vice chairperson can request the chief. And right now, there's not a clear policy that actually says that when the vice chairperson can ask for the chief to act. And then, in lieu of either of them acting, if there is actually disorder, which I felt there was at that meeting, for example, there's no protocol then to, for the other remaining 3 members. But I think you raise a really valid point, Mr. Barney. If you're basically saying if 3 members of the board, the chairperson, the vice chairperson, and 1 other person, don't recognize that there's disorderly conduct, the other 2 selectmen could just, have to be, kind of subject to that.
No.
I don't think you can.
By what standards are we measuring disorder?
If you feel someone's out of order, I believe you have the right to say,
Absolutely, absolutely.
this
This
gentleman
is
probably
common
has to be
sense. We
removed.
do not need a script.
You have the right.
This is overly complex.
You would not be stepping out of
If
order, in
anybody
my
feels
book, no.
personally threatened, they have a right
You
to
have the
say,
right,
I don't
yes.
like this. It's to make a 3-page document with a script on how and when to call order just strikes me as being way over the top.
So, Madam Chair, you would have been okay if I would have asked the gentleman that spoke at that meeting to come to order?
If you felt threatened, yes, you could have said, please come to order, and then we could have dealt with it. The whole, people get emotional at meetings. I'm emotional now. People lose their temper momentarily. It happens all the time. And I'm not going to sit there and say, does this qualify as out of order? And what if, no, I don't want, it should be common sense. People, we're grown-ups, okay?
Yeah, you have every right.
We have every right to call order. And Tony has been around the block a few times. He's seen people get out of order, and he's done it. And, why are we making this policy so complex when it's common sense? We have so many more important things to deal with than who says point of order, and who's one person on the board's going to get upset because somebody has said something and nobody else will call order. To me, it's creating the opposite problem from what you want to solve.
It's creating another layer.
It's creating more complexity than needs to be created. If this happens again, and we want to discuss the specific, but this policy just...
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So, first of all, I just want to say, I appreciate your comments. I just want to let you know, and the public know, that I put actually several hours into writing this.
I believe you did.
There have been several things that I've, given to the board that the comments have been that it's verbose. I would, encourage another member of the board to, have taken the last 2 weeks to perhaps written an alternative verbiage of the policy. But I think that it's not just about the board and who acts on the board, but it's also about the member of the public, okay? They have rights, the freedom of speech and such. And so I think that there needs to be a clear policy in place so that if a member of the board asks a member of the public who appears to become disorderly to come to order or consequently to leave or to be removed, that we have it documented that has been a policy that's been adopted by the board so that we can take action without potential liability.
I think rules of order are pretty standard, Charlie. Didn't our original document that you wanted us to sign have things in it about rules of order? Again, why are we making this so unbelievably complex when there is no standard by which to judge anyone's opinion at any given time that this is disorderly? It is going to be an on-the-moment judgment, and to have a policy and then to have to weigh through this script and stage 1 and stage 2 and reference this. I can't even imagine following it. I can certainly imagine following rules of order. I think we do it all the time.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not as smooth as it ought to be from time to time, but it doesn't happen at every meeting. And like I said, we have more important things to worry about in this town than who says order.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
The thing is that I don't feel that you followed the current policy. If there's a kind of like a unspoken policy that you can call order, I didn't see you do it. I didn't see the vice chair, call order.
Right.
And I think that in terms of running the town efficiently and effectively, it's helpful to have a policy that at least maintains, order. This doesn't go through all the items that are considered disorder. Rather, it gives a protocol for handling, disorder when it arises.
Again, way too complex. If this was a constant problem, I'd be more sympathetic, but it happens from time to time, and anyone is free to speak up and say, this ain't right.
Right. Let's vote.
Could I ask a question
Yes,
of clarity
certainly.
for our people at home in TV
Yes.
land? I'd like to ask the Sergeant at Arms, in your tenure, how many times have you had to remove people from our meetings? It's a handful, right?
Once.
Once, okay.
Once. And the gentleman left.
Yep.
So
So
it's not a
it's not a major problem.
So I'd like to make a motion to call the question.
I'll second that.
All those in favor
All those in favor of calling the
of
question?
calling the question? Aye?
Yes.
Aye.
Okay, in that case, we will entertain a vote on whether or not to adopt this policy written by Teja Singh Shipalingam as written. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
I'm going to abstain for this because I do believe we need something.
Okay.
The verbiage, like you said, the verbiage is what my hang-up is, but I do believe we need something.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on.
The other item here?
Yes,
is-
the department head agenda.
Right. So perhaps more to your taste, it's a one-page policy. For agenda items and supporting information to be submitted by a certain day and a certain time, to include certain items. And then basically a statement here that completing the, following this policy is part or kind of feeds into the standards of conduct, that it's an expectation for the department heads. It would make it an expectation for the department heads.
So you are making a motion that we approve this as
Yep,
written?
I'll make the motion
Is
that
there a
this
second?
be adopted by the select board as written.
Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, discussion.
I don't get it.
Has the public seen this?
Yes, it was
Should we read it?
posted in the pack.
It was posted?
Please do.
Okay.
Go ahead.
With the exception of emergencies and time-sensitive items that cannot be reasonably delayed, all requests made by the department heads to add an item to a Board of Selectmen agenda shall be submitted a minimum of 3 calendar days, excepting government holidays, prior to the intended meeting day by 1 p.m. of the intended submission day. Further, all requests for agenda items be added shall be accompanied by at least a supporting information memorandum, which shall include, but not necessarily be limited to, 1, summary description explaining the agenda item, 2, proposed or requested action from the Board of Selectmen, 3, a brief list of benefits of the proposed course of action, 4, a summary of the costs and where funds are to be found, 5, a brief list of the alternatives to the proposed action, and 6, all contractual paperwork or an abridged version thereof as is reasonable and prudent. Recurring failure by a department head to adhere to this policy may be determined by the Board of Selectmen to be a breach of the standards of conduct listed on page 29, section 57 of the Town of Ashland Personnel Policy Manual, and therefore may be at the discretion of the board subject to disciplinary procedures as presented on page 30, section 58 of the Town of Ashland Personnel Policy Manual. I got a few department heads here.
Yes.
Comments, please.
Well, as someone who's only part-time, where am I gonna have time to do that? Honestly. I mean, in the summer, I'm here full-time. Any other time, I'm not. I'm there for my after-school program, and that's it. I don't have time to do that. I have a full-time job. If something comes up and I feel it's important, and I get it to Charlie. Otherwise, if it's something small, like asking you guys to sign thank yous, I don't think that's something I need to put on an agenda. I think that's something that should be just done. We're all together, that's when we have time.
Any other comments from our department heads?
Well, I don't know that you can really discipline me because I'm protected by the law. but-
Okay. All right.
I just think that when department heads do come and they have something that they want to discuss with you, that we do have the information for the select board. I'm going to tell you, this is governmental red tape as far as I'm concerned. I don't know how busy the rest of you are with what you're doing, but I'm pretty busy a lot of the days. And to sit down and start drafting up stuff to be formally submitted all the time. See, this is really hitting home because I'm about to look into getting rid of one of our cruises through our capital reserve program. And I'm right now trying to pull together some prices. Okay, so, you know, I'll give you all the information, but whether I get it to you the night before or not, that's what the meeting's about, to discuss the stuff.
Right.
And if you don't feel comfortable with what the department head presents to you, then table it and go to the next meeting. It's as simple as that.
Yep,
I mean, you know, we have to get stuff done
right.
at some point in time, and that's the way I feel about it. I mean, you know, my comment to Charlie about another forum. Really, Charlie?
Yeah, really.
But I mean, personally, I don't think it's really, I don't feel it's been a big issue when we come to the board with stuff that we either need or need to do or whatever.
That never has been, but.
I mean, I don't know, I guess, you know, I haven't had, this is the first that I've heard this, okay, you know, maybe if I looked at it and discussed it, a little more thought process on it rather than just tonight, I might have a different outlook, but I'm pretty sure I'm not gonna have. I hate well, that's what I'm gonna tell you, I hate paperwork, and the job is loaded with, my job is loaded with paperwork. Okay, now it's just another piece of paperwork to have to contend with. And
Yep.
Chief Heath, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I mean, I understand the benefits of getting, you know, having plans and knowing ahead of time what it is you're looking for, but you meet every 2 weeks or thereabouts, and sometimes things come in between and at the last minute, so to speak, that, you know, I may view as being urgent. The board may not see them as being urgent, but when I'm looking at timeliness and so forth, there may be an occasion where, you know, I feel something needs to be dealt with so I can move forward. Again, not to cause the board any harm, and it's not, you know, intended to you know, do it for that reason, but it is, you know, from my perspective anyway, sometimes urgent that we get something done, and I know sometimes I can be a pain about that, following people around to get sick. But, you know, it's my job to, you know, especially if it's a safety issue, or if there's personnel issues or something that I need to discuss with the board because it needs to be acted on, and sometimes it's tough for me to table, and I know I called a couple times at the last minute and asked to be put on non-public for reasons that I thought were justified and needed to be dealt with. But,
Any other board comments? I would like to say that, I think obviously getting the information is beneficial. It helps us make a decision. And I do like the form Charlie created. I realize it's another form. It was convenient for tonight. I have an issue with that last paragraph about discipline. I just felt that language is a bit officious and is kind of overstepping our reach. I mean, the department heads report to Charlie,
Right.
ultimately to us, and to start specifying discipline about
It's
information.
micromanagement.
It is micromanagement, so that's my opinion, for whatever it's worth. So,
I think the theory of the paperwork is good. It represents tenacity on both sides, the tenacity of us as a board trying to run this town right, and the tenacity of you as the department heads trying to do your job to the fullest. Yes, our timeframes don't always meet up at the same time, but we're still sitting here trying to work through it.
Yeah, we do the best we
So
can.
I think that's the validity of it.
Any other comments? Okay, all those of adopting this policy as written by Tasia Singh Shivlingam, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
Non-public session.
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry, wait a minute,
Wait.
Stop, I just wanted to stretch.
Oh,
I was kidding.
Come on, you
Liaison reports?
Yes, I have one.
Oh, you have one.
Or,
Go.
well, me and Lee were talking, you want to talk
Okay.
to Lee?
Go.
Lee, you go ahead.
Oh, okay. I had the liaison to the Penny River Local Advisory Committee, or PERLAC as we call it. I had a memorandum from them stating that no longer will we be able to, or a public body, a commission, or selectmen be able to discuss any strategy regarding the Northern Pass situation except in non-public because it is under litigation.
Okay, thank you.
And that is the new action.
Okay, thank you. Any other liaison reports? Yes?
So the Electric Commission has, they've had a resignation of one of their commissioners, Mr. Fugariel. I thank him for his time and service, and the commission is planning to appoint a new commissioner tomorrow at the next meeting, if that meeting is held. And then also they've received notice from the superintendent that the superintendent intends to resign. The details of that are forthcoming, so we'll have to, just wait and see.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, and there's one more
Yep.
item. I also just wanted to make sure I distributed a little memo about coal ash, the management of the coal ash. I put that in your folders.
Okay.
I just want to bring your attention to it,
Yep.
and that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I already reported on the volunteer committee, and I think that my last meeting was the most recent update on the economic development committee meeting. We do have a meeting tomorrow night. We are planning for a meeting with LRPC, some business people, some mill owners, and maybe some of the agencies that we might get grants from in the future, and I will give you more details as I have them, but some good things happening.
Nice.
Okay, anything else? Okay, public comment on the agenda items or anything that we discussed.
Yay.
Twice?
Yay.
Don't be shy, okay, fine, whatever.
I got a form. Would like to tell you where to put the form.
We need a motion to go into non-public.
Yes,
Yes.
we now need a motion to go into non-public pursuant to RSA 91A:3, Roman numeral 2, small letter A.